All right, we are live. We are live. We are live. All right, so I already got a message that was waiting for me. Ngozi, my brother, love this community. Thank you for what you do. Thank you very much, Njoku Health and Wellness Group. I appreciate that. Those are very kind words to open my screen and begin with. So much appreciations for what you're doing. Let me see if I can get a link to the video that we are talking about pinned to the top. For those who haven't had a chance to watch it, they can go check it out after the live. And I hope everybody can hear me well. Give me just a second. Family member is going to be the one that's going to hesitate. Whoa, all right. Give me just a second before we start. Also waiting for everybody to get in the room. Ndewonu to everybody who is in already. All right. Here we go. All right, so this discussion today, we're going to be talking about the awful. Most specifically, the video that I most recently made, which is Understanding the Awful or Awful Explained. This concept is at the core of how society is formed, or how our ancestors put their society together, how our ancestors understood their relationship with the world and the universe, and how our ancestors understood the relationship between each other. And by each other, I mean the living and non-living members of the world community, local community, and family. Kedu, Missy Diva Lai, Kedu Kwano. As always, I'm going to begin by giving praise and appreciation to everything that it takes to make this particular moment possible. So let me begin. I'll translate for everybody as well. Okikeke rowa, ana mekelengi, ojabiala, alawala, ana mekelengi, ojabiala. Ndị mmụọ na ndị mmadụ, ndị mbụ na ndị egede, ndị eke, ndị orie, ndị afọ na ndị nkwọ, ọjị abịala. Ọjị ike iwu ọjị ijeọma, ọjị ike iwu ọjị ndụ, ọjị ike iwu ọjị ike na ọjị uche. Mana ihe ọbụla Chukwu kere anyị ime n'ụwa, ọ ga-adị, ọ ga-eto, anyị ga-eri ya. N'ọkọ ka dị n'eke, n'ọkọ ka dị n'orie, n'ọkọ ka dị n'afọ, n'ọkọ ka dị na nkwọ, ise. All right. So those of you who are interested in knowing how to break cola or how to do what I just did, I have a pretty simple thing that I always say, because my Igbo is not concrete, so I keep it simple for myself. But more or less, if you follow the lives, if you follow discussions that were in Ross, he say, exactly. You got to say he say in order to receive it. But I have a pretty simple thing that I've put together that I use just about every time. He say Kana Empire. Aye, Ndibo Kwenu. And when I say Ndibo Kwenu, you guys got to say, hey, if you think you're not Igbo, you're Igbo. Because you say Lance Broker, you say Lady Luck. I'm starting to see who's all in the room. Okay, that's what's up. All right, so what I said is, Okike Kerowa, the creator who created the world. The Oji has come, or I present you with Oji Abiala, right? Alawala, right? Earth, who is the earth? Allah, who is the earth? I present you with Oji, or I've brought you Oji. I've brought Oji for Ndimmo and Ndimmadu, which is the spirits, and for the spirits that are in our presence and the people who are present, right? Ndimbu Nandiegede. Now, if you've watched my the 4 World Ages video, you'll understand what I mean when I say Ndimbu Nandiegede. Ndimbu are the first people. Ndimbu are the first people. These are the people who came into the world before mortality, right? Before death. They existed before death. There was a perfect connection between them and Chukwu, or Obi Chukwu, where Chukwu is the source of the universe. They can go back and forth as they wanted to, that type of thing. Ndiegede are our mortal ancestors. So Ndimbu are our immortal ancestors. Ndiegede are our mortal ancestors. Because when death arrived, when the first person died, from that point on, They went from being Ndimbu to Ndiegede, and therefore their connection to Chukwu and their connection to the universe was not a natural or an immediate thing. They had to use a lot of the methods that we now call Igbo spirituality, cosmology, in order to make that connection possible. Right. So those are Ndiegede, the ones that came after death, because after death, the separation between us and the rest of the world began to increase until we drifted and drifted and drifted. So if you're interested in this particular understanding, I have a video called Uga Explained, or the Igbo Four World Ages, the Uga Explained. If anybody has a link to that, I would not mind you posting it in the chat there, that type of thing. So I said Ndimbu Ndiegede, I presented them with the Oji, right? And I presented Ndieke, Ndiore, Nafo, and Dinkwo with the Oji. Those are the 4 market days. Now, on each day, any day that you are born is one of your names, right? So if you're interested in knowing the day you were born, I have a calendar, or particular dates. Maybe you have a child on the way, that type of thing. I have an Igbo calendar, a digital calendar that is available to all patrons at patreon.com/themedicineshell. So if you are a patron at any tier level, you'll be able to see this calendar. You'll understand the 4 market days. You'll know which moon is coming up, so I don't have to come out and announce it for you. You'll know which moons are coming up, what the moons are called, what our ancestors did on each moon, right? So right now we are in Onwa Ilo Mo. We are finishing up Ilo Mo, Onwa Ilo Mo. For some communities, this is when they celebrate the New Yam Festival. For other communities, the next moon is when they'll celebrate the New Yam Festival, right? And so, oftentimes with Igbo people, whenever you ask something, somebody who's going to give you a good answer is going to say, it depends on your village. It depends on your village, because there's no overlapping way things are done in Igbo land, right? But what I've come to find is that I'll go ahead and say 80 or 8 out of 10 to be safe. We'll either have new yams on this one, which is Onwa Ilo Mo, or the next one. Now, Onwa Ilo Mo is the rebirth or the reincarnation moon, right? So when things are planted in the previous planting moon or the moon before that, you're going to start seeing them emerge during this moon, and then they'll be harvested on Waana, the next moon. If your community is one that is, let me say, a moon behind, and then the community is a moon ahead, their stuff is starting to grow now or harvest that right now. So it depends, but the variances are, sometimes we exaggerate the variances as well as a people. The variances is usually 1 or 2, like 1 moon off, that type of thing. So I said thanks to all of those people. If you have ancestors whose names you don't know, which is all of us, right? Some of us more so than others, just because of history and things like that. You use Eke Orie Afon, and that will cover them, because all of us, every single one of us, one of those days is one of our names, right? I'm Afo. I check the calendar. I'm Afo, that type of thing. So if you're interested, go to patreon.com/themedicineshell, and it's there. So now another thing that I said was this Oji, right? This offering, that type of thing, is an offering of Ijama, which is good journeys, which is an offering. I know I said Uche, which is wisdom, Iken, which is strength, and that anything that our hands touch, it's going to grow, it's going to multiply, we're going to enjoy it, so we're going to eat it. That's how I said it. And it's going to be like this on Eke Day, Uri Day, Afo Day, and Nkwo Day. And then and everybody who said he said with me received it. So I just sent good luck to everybody and good fortune. And those who said he said welcomed it. And then those who didn't, I don't know, man. I'll catch you next time. Well, yeah. So the discussion today is on the awful. I was advised, I see you. Yes, I was advised by one of the people in the lives that it would be better if I did a discussion after each video. I thought that was a great idea, because usually when a video drops, there's a flood of questions, and I'll answer people like a Twitter DM, Instagram DM, sometimes on Patreon DM, but ultimately, a lot of these questions need to be asked out loud so that everybody receives the answer, because sometimes it's the same question from multiple people. Sometimes the question itself is something that would reveal a lot to people who wouldn't ordinarily think to ask the question. So I'm doing this so that everybody can ask. I don't want to miss my blessings. There you go, man. Yeah, better Gary day your stomach. Good job. So yeah, first and foremost, before I begin discussing the all-fall, I want us to do something, right? If you want to help this channel, the number one way to help is by becoming a patron, right? Another good way to help is very simple by hitting like, right? And I think everybody in here should be subscribed. So hitting subscribe if you're not subscribed already, right? So Patreon is the number one way. I don't think I could ever express to the patrons how much they're doing for my efforts and for this movement of making this a possibility and remaining consistent and being able to purchase books when I need to purchase books and dig into articles that have paywalls behind them and things like that. So I thank everybody for that who's contributing that way. But the easiest way, the most simple way is by hitting like right now, because YouTube then says, okay, people like this. I'm going to send this out to more people who have similar interests, and we're going to help this community and this movement grow. Somebody told me it was a movement today, so I'm taking that chieftaincy title. We're calling this a movement from now on. So awesome. And turning on your notification bells on all the videos. Yes, turn on your notification bells. I guess a lot of times YouTube won't let you, like, even if you hit like and subscribe, it doesn't let you know when a new video comes up. So when you hit your notification bell, and make sure to say, okay, this person is trying to get the updates. Where is the calendar and the Patreon located for those who already subscribed? So the calendar should be in your Google Calendar or Yahoo Calendar, whichever. So you sign up with a particular email address. If you return to your Google or your Yahoo Calendar, it should be populated there. Now you're going to see at the bottom left. At the bottom left, if it doesn't show automatically, it's going to say there's going to be a little yellow tag, the same color as the Medicine Shell logo, and it's going to say Igbo Village by the Medicine Shell. Click on that, and then all of the months or the moons and the days and everything will populate. If you're already on the Patreon and it's not showing up for you automatically on the email address you signed up with, message me personally. I'll walk you through it, or I'll go and see what I didn't do right in the configuration, but it should show up automatically on your Google Calendar. It's color coded. Yes. Miss Diva Light. Yes, it's color coded. It should be yellow. It should be in your calendar. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Yes, absolutely. Kana, no problem. Awesome. So today we are discussing the Ofo based off of the video I dropped, Ofo Explained. Now, in this video, I'm going to just highlight a couple of things because I went into detail in the video. So if you want the details and you haven't finished or seen the video yet, go ahead and go in there. Michael Owuna. Can you talk about how your life destiny objective has been shaped by your last name, Ofo and Child? Okay, yeah, man, I appreciate that. And how does that impact that of your children too? Yeah, thank you very much for that. I'm absolutely going to do that. So the video is Ofo Explained. In the video, I explained the different facets of the Ofo, or our ancestral understanding of this particular thing we call Ofo, in its abstract and in its literal physical sense, right? And both of them are equally important. So I'm going to kind of gloss over a couple of things and then answer questions for those who have seen the video already, right? So Michael asked, Mikkel asked about my own last name. So in the video, I had an Ilu, which I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but I said that the clue to understanding it is my own last name, which is Ofo Derengwa, which is a child with an Ofo within, or the Ofo is within the child, right? And it goes back to something that my own father had told me. We were going to those of you who are Igbo will kind of understand this situation. So we were going to a community meeting, right? And this was my first time seeing Nigerians or Igbo people from my place in almost a decade, because we had come back from Nigeria and we lived in a very small 99.9 minus us percent white town. Then we moved to another town where it was more diverse, but there weren't many Nigerians, and then they were all significantly younger than me if there were. So this was my first time seeing my people from my town in a decade. So I went with my dad, and I guess one of the organizers had beef with him. So the organizer decided to have a high seat, and they decided to not have my dad in the high seat. And if you know my dad, he doesn't care about stuff like that. He doesn't care. And so I asked my dad, hey, how come they didn't give you a high seat, And my dad said something that really stuck with me. And he said, it's the person sitting on the throne is not always the king, right? And it ties back to the name Ofo Derengwa, right? Which means a lot of these concepts are internal. The Ofo is within, right? The Ofo is within. So in essence, there is a physical representation that is made for the awful and that type of thing. And a lot of the interaction you have is going to be with that physical representation. Now, the physical representation is as important as the internal representation. And the example I used when we were talking about it on Patreon, I think yesterday, was that if you live inside of a box your whole life, you'll never know how that box is shaped, right? If you live inside of that box, it's just all darkness. You really don't know too much about that box. You have to step outside of that box and look at it from the outside to know, okay, this is a purple box and it has ribbons on it, XYZ, that type of thing, right? So the stepping out and being able to look at it physically, that is stepping outside of the box so you can understand the concept more. The physical fall helps you understand the conceptual fall more. You understand? But then internally, you must also look internal to understand that box. Okay, within this box, it's empty, or maybe there's confetti inside of it, that type of thing, right? So both of them are important. But the name Ofo Derengwa is a child with an Ofo within, or the Ofo is within the child. Literally, the Ofo is within the child, right? So these concepts, right? This particular concept of Ofo is within. It's internal. That is my great grandfather's name, and my great great grandmother and grandfather gave him that name to articulate that concept, or to say that this is the particular nature of this child and that type of thing. And he went on to do very great things. Now, how the name has affected us as a family, you know, it's interesting that you ask that, because as I hear a lot of people's stories, especially like in diaspora and things like that, I come to realize that there were a lot of anti-cultural sentiments that we didn't grow up with, right? I think a lot of these things in my family, there's natural to us. It's not, we're not scared of these concepts, or it's not like something we reject and that type of thing, you know. There's a lot of that I guess I avoided as a child, that was very formative, right? And so if you have a name like Alfada, right, it reflects that type of thing. Your name already honors this concept, you understand? And so it's hard to then turn around and reject it and say that, oh, the Alfa is the devil, or what. I don't know what they're saying in y'all's churches these days, but the Alfa is the devil, and all that stuff, because it's my literal name, right? And so, or that it's juju. I think that's one of the things they'll say. And so that particular name, I think that the name is a way of making this concrete. I don't think it's going anywhere. My son's going to have this name, so on and so forth. And these concepts, the concepts that tie around the awful, I think that there are things that my family collectively cherish and try to exude, and that type of thing. And I would say successfully exude, especially, not even especially, just period. So yeah, names are unbelievably important to our ancestors. A name will set the trajectory of not just you, but your generations to come. So that is why a lot of the names in most African cultures have a very specific meaning, have a very specific purpose, have a very specific essence and message that they communicate, that type of thing. So yeah, that was a really good question. I think that the name has been a blessing. It's a very strong name, so I wear it everywhere. And like I said, it would be impossible to reject the way of my ancestors with a name that says that thing is within me, right? That thing is within me. My father-in-law, when we were talking about the Alfa, the analogy he tried to use, he said that the Alfa is like the Bible for our ancestors. And in a lot of respects, he is right. In a lot of respects, he is right. So just imagine your name is I don't know, child with a Bible within. Let's say that's just your last name, you know, maybe in whatever German or something. And you're walking around talking about, oh yeah, the Bible is fake. Whoop, whoop, whoop. You'll look crazy, right? So names matter. Names matter. Thank you for that, Chief Funa. Thank you very much for that. So as far as the Alfa goes, and the reason he made that analogy, by the way, was because the Alfa, while the physical representation of the Alfa is important, right? People think that it has to be that exact thing, that has to be that Alfa, and that's not necessarily always it, right? when you go to court in the United States or most countries now, when you go to court in most countries, they're going to ask you to swear on something that's sacred to you, right? If you are a Christian, they're going to bring out a Bible. If you are, I don't know, Hindu, maybe they'll bring out the Bhagavad Gita. I can't say that. Quran, Torah, whatever. They're going to do whatever is awful to you. Whatever it is that you touch and have a hard time or an impossible time lying after touching or while touching, right? The thing that you use to take oaths and that oath ends up mattering, right? Okay, I have to honor this oath because I signed it on a piece of paper. So that piece of paper is all fault to you. You understand? I have to take this oath because I held the Bible when I said I would do it. Or maybe I said, a lot of people will use terms like, man, I don't even want to say this, sounds so crazy, like, I swear on XYZ's grave, right? Okay, the fact that you swore on XYZ's grave, that grave is all fault to you. That grave is all fault to you, right? So our ancestors have an entire science as to how you deal with that thing that is all fault to you. So in the video, I talked about the process of reincarnation. And when you are reincarnating, okay, I think we got a lot more people in here. Well, 18 now, so we're doing good. So if you are new, hit like. I talked about how important it was to hit like and hit the bell notification. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit subscribe. We are talking about the Alpha, and doing that helps this channel, helps this movement, helps this community grow. And it's one of the best ways to contribute back to the channel, that type of thing. If you think what I'm sharing is beneficial to you, or maybe you'll think it would be beneficial to others, then go ahead and do that. So in this, I talked about the process of reincarnation in this video. So when you are reincarnating, you are a composite of 4 essences. And I'm sure all of you have heard me say this before. You are Chi, Eke, Agun, or Onyowa. And I'm going to call it Onyowa for a reason. And more, right? So Onyowa is the part of you that reincarnates, right? Because when you pass away, these essences go their separate ways. They go their 4 separate ways, right? Eke, being you as a parcel of creation, ties back to the concept of dust to dust, ashes to ashes, that type of thing. You return back into creation, right? If you have any doubts that the earth created you, I mean, without sounding too morbid, watch the process of decay. You turn back into earth, right? You turn back into earth. Just like if you have an ice cube and you, for some reason, doubt this ice cube it came from water, as that thing melts, it'll turn back to what it really is. So you are earth, right? And that is why the earth, Allah, is the number 1 in Igbo cosmology. I think one of the influences of Christianity on people is that they've put Chukwu at the top, right? They've put Chukwu at the top. And as wild as it may sound to some people, it's actually Anna. Excuse me, it's actually Anna that is the top. It is Anna that is the main. It is Anna that is the primary focus. Everything Chukwu wants done, Chukwu has done. It is past tense. You understand? Everything Chukwu wants done, has already happened. So it's not necessarily Chukwu that you appeal to for things. It is the earth. It is the earth, right? And that is extremely important because, like I said, one of the influences of Christianity is that, the idea of Chukwu becomes central or primary and that type of thing. And I've even heard some people try to downplay the earth, which, I mean, you won't do that in your you wouldn't dare do that in your village. So it's like internet people and things like that. You wouldn't dare do that nonsense in the village. You understand? Because you don't play with earth. You don't play with the earth, Mother Earth, Anna, in Igbo cosmology. That is the main thing. So anyways, everybody goes their separate ways, and then your Onyuwa begins the process of reincarnating again. The first thing it does is it returns to Chukwu, or returns to Chi, and receives its purpose, or rekindles its purpose, or gets its purpose for existing. Then it returns back into Eke, which is creation, right? Eke and Allah, the earth, are one. It's one and the same, right? So sometimes it is said that Eke has died and Anna is her daughter, and thus the inheritor, her Ada, her first daughter, and thus the inheritor of everything that is her, the inheritor of her essence, right? A lot of times in our tradition, and it varies in some villages, but the things that your mother is entitled to, and things that your mother earns in life, that honor is bestowed or inherited by her first daughter, the Ada, when she passes. So oftentimes, I had a great conversation with one of the patrons. They had a line of is and why, or is and why is like a female debia, for lack of better terms. So they have that in their lineage, and it passed through the mother, and it is particularly prominent in the first daughter and that type of thing. So Eke, when we say Eke, we're also talking about the earth again, but we're also talking about the wider universe, just creation as a whole, right? So you return to creation and you make an oath to creation. The oath you make to creation is going to be your ofondum, right? Your ofo of life, or I called it ofo more, your spiritual ofo, right? So the ofondum or ofo more is the agreement you make before coming into creation. What is that agreement? The agreement itself is saying that these are the principles I'm going to live by. These are the principles I'm not going to violate, right? And it is primarily one, I'm not going to desecrate the earth. Now, what does desecrating the earth look like? It is committing what is called aru. Aru is an abomination. So when you do something that has been forbidden, like when a land, okay, so when your ancestors come to a land, not just your ancestors, anybody's ancestors, when they come to a land and they found that land, they say, we're going to live here. They make a covenant with the earth. Okay, you're going to allow us to live on this particular parcel of earth. We're not going to, this is pretty universal, shed blood, human blood. We're not going to shed human blood. We're not going to commit incest. And incest includes sleeping with the wives of your brothers and your sister or your siblings. So once somebody is married within your family, they become a sibling. And that, if you do that, that's incest. We're not going to commit incest. We're not going to shed blood. We're not going to take what is not ours, like, and that includes both physical, like with people, like we're not going to be stealing. Then it also becomes spiritual too. We're not going to take things that belong to the spirit. So there are certain trees that don't get cut down. Sometimes you'll walk and there'll be a machete in the ground. Don't touch it. It's not yours. That kind of thing. These are the universal rules. Some communities will have one or two that are different, but they're universal: incest, murder. Incest, murder. And like theft, especially like spiritual theft or taking from the earth, right? That type of thing. So that is usually what goes with the awful. But again, there is a mission or a purpose you came into the earth with that your chi gave you. So a lot of that awful is going to tie back to that purpose. Is going to tie back to that purpose. Now, in the video, I discussed the concept of awful nogu, right? Awful nogu. And you'll notice a lot in Igbo cosmology that things will always come in twos, right? So there's Chineke, Madonna Mo, what's another one? Ala Nigwe, Anyanwu na Bara. There's always these like two, it's like this binary kind of like lockdown of how creation happens, right? And Ofo comes into the world with Ogun. So Ogun was a concept that I was trying to explain in the video, and I hopefully successfully explained it. Check out the video. It is linked to the top. Hopefully I successfully explained it in a way that was succinct and clear, but it is difficult to explain because there's no single concept that fits it in the English language. And when I say that, I mean, I talked to my friend who was a lawyer. I looked it up everywhere. I went into like etymology. I'm kind of weird. I like to look at etymology, the etymology of certain words and things like that. So I looked at it. I couldn't find anything that gave. There was pieces of it here and there, but one that was succinct, right? So Ogun is this: if you make an agreement, right? The example I used in the video was like an apartment lease, right? So but I'm going to use the law, right? I'm going to use the law. Just general the law. The law of any country you're in is an awful. It is awful that ties that law together, right? So you go into a community and they have a law saying that you can't cut down trees, right? Maybe you're at Yellowstone National Park, right? And you can't cut down trees there. Now, so long as you are following that law, there's a certain protection that you're going to have, right? There are rights that come with it. There are protections. You have what's called ogunma, good ogun, right? You're ogun, you're in good standing. Another way to look at it is karma, right? You're in good standing as far as that goes. But once you cut down that tree, right? Once you go there and let's say you're just like, all right, I'm tired of these trees, I'm cutting them down. You cut down one of the trees. Suddenly you lose that protective ogun, right? And now the owners of the park or the people you made that accord with, right? The people you made that accord with, I'm not going to cut down these trees so long as I'm in the park. They now have the ogun or the right to come and enforce that law, to come and enforce it. So now you can be punished. Those rights can be stripped from you, that type of thing. Another one is like, for example, with an apartment, you move into an apartment. Okay, this is what comes with the apartment. They go down the list. You know, these are things you're going to get. You're going to pay your rent consistently, and all of a sudden you don't pay for 3 months. They happen to, if you're paying your rent and you're keeping up with things, you have the ogun to enjoy and be there, and you're in good standing. You are protected, right? You are protected. Once you stop paying, or once you violate that awful, there's ogun that will now come and take those things from you or punish you for violating that awful, that type of thing. So it is a balancing thing. Ogun has a balancing nature to it. Another name for ogun is ikun ofo. Now, ikun ofo relates to when a person is guilty, right? If you are guilty in a crime and you go to trial, in the traditional sense or even in the contemporary sense, you go to a trial and for some reason you evaded justice. For some reason, they didn't prove you what, that type of thing, right? The equal fall means that you will be punished. The punishment is coming. The humans failed at punishing you. So now Ndimmo, or the fall itself, will do the punishing for you. Don't worry, that kind of thing, right? So when you swear on fall and you're lying, right? The idea or the concept is that if the human beings fail to detect or to enact justice, the Ofo will ultimately enact the justice itself. There's a saying that my dad introduced me, which is Ofo Jiogunere, right? The Ofo trades in Ogun. The Ofo Jiogunere, right? Ofo trades in Ogun. Ogun is the currency of the Ofo, that type of thing. So the Ofo is a protective concept as well. The Ofo protects an individual, it protects a home, it protects a community. Whatever the Ofo represents, it protects. The way a contract protects two people that are in accord. We agree to do X, Y, Z. Okay, we are protected by this contract, that type of thing. But the Ofo takes on a spiritual dimension that a contemporary or a paper contract doesn't necessarily take on. So that protection is Ogun. The lack of protection itself is also Ogun. If anybody can think of a word that describes that particular concept in English, then we'll go with it. You know what I mean? But right now it's hard for me to think of just one. So I tried to just check out the video, see how I did it. Very similar to what I'm doing here anyways. But yeah, so that is the concept of Ogun, and that is the concept of Ofo. So once you're born with this thing, there are a certain set of principles that you keep to. I also have another video. Let me post the link to it right now. Give me just 1 second. I had it saved and stashed to the side, or maybe I didn't have it saved and stashed to the side. Let me see here. Hopefully this is the link. So somebody will have to click in and let me know, but I think this should be the right link. So this particular link is a clip from the video that teaches how to perform what is called Igbo Tutu, right? So every morning, the person who has an Ofo will plant that Ofo on the ground, and you will do a prayer, or a prayer is a tough word for it. It's more so because prayer has a certain connotation in this culture. So it's more so it's closer to manifesting than it is prayer, right? And I can kind of break down how that works. So you plant the Ofo on the ground, and based on the principles of that Ofo, you go down the list and say the things that you have not done, or that and so forth. So we'll go back to that community one. I have not shed blood. I have not caused harm to others. I have not taken what is not mine. I have not, just go down the line, right? You just go down the line and all these different laws. I have not done that thing, that type of thing. And then there's a second aspect to Igbo Afo, where you then say, you negate the bad things that may be coming in your way. Let those who wish ill against me fall ill first. Let those who are stepping towards my harm fall in a ditch. The way they say it could be very funny and creative sometimes. Let the people who are speaking against me bite their tongue. Basically, whatever you're doing, whatever you have against me for today, let that thing happen to you first. You understand? And then from there, we're going to grow. You manifest the things you want in your life. You understand? This family is going to grow. Usually the person that holds the Ofo is doing the manifestation on behalf of the family, which is extremely important. Ofo has nothing to do, there's an individual personal Ofo, but Ofo has nothing to do with individual, like being an individual. It is a family concept. So the person that holds the Ofo, right, is going to be speaking on behalf of the family, right? let's say somebody's getting married, let Uchechi's family or a new family protect her, let them cherish her, let them do whatever. You just go down the line of all the things you want to manifest in the world, and so forth. And then you send it into the world with Ise or Ofo, right? Ofo is like Ise, but on a higher level. Ofo means let it be law. It is law, that type of thing. And so you manifest that, and that's what you do, and then you begin your day. Now, the Ofo, libel or liability, is a rough translation. That is a very good one. I'll look further into, I know liability on like a layman term level, but I know there's more to it probably. So I'll try to look into it and see if it works. But yeah, no, it sounds like it. Yeah, liability sounds like a good one. So yeah, liability sounds decent. But then it's like liability mixed with karma, mixed with dharma. It's very hard to, again, explain. So that's, you manifest these things and you bring it into the world. But before you begin the process of manifesting, you must declare why you are worthy of holding that offer to yourself and to the offer that you plant in the ground, and you do it. There's an ilu that we discussed on Patreon. We have a group chat on Patreon. We do it every 2 Sundays. It's completely optional. And I don't want anybody to feel like, oh man, if I miss it, like I've had people like apologize to me for missing it. And it's like, no, you don't have to. It's just for fun. Like we're just sharing ideas and talking, that kind of thing. It's not like, I'm not gonna like, oh, why'd you miss a group chat? That kind of thing. So, do you destroy all false staffs that don't work? Like will you do with Abara carvings? Yes, you do. So ha. That's a really good question, which is, do you destroy an all that doesn't work, right? The question is yes. And the reason I say that is because just based on the evidence that I have, or what I know, is that there's an account of a man who rejected his father's offer. So the offer is one of the only things in Igbo culture that is inherited. Most of the things in Igbo culture, is inheritance is not a common thing, right? So, for example, if you have a family, traditionally the first son is the one that gets the land. Everybody else kind of has to start their own thing. Now, I'm a first son, but the ironic thing is, they did a thing and they found out that a lot of the younger sons end up being more successful because the pressure on them is a lot higher since they don't have this entitlement type of thing, right? So that type of thing. So, but usually, like, for everything goes to the first son, that type of thing, and then the first son divvies it up amongst the family, usually based on their father's request. But there was an account of a person who inherited an awful from his father, but he disposed it and then they asked him why. He said he didn't like his father's character. Right? He didn't like his father's character. And it goes back to a concept that we've discussed in these chats before when it comes to reincarnation, is that ultimately it is your family that chooses whether you reincarnate or not. Because after you make that agreement, the earth will bring you into the world through a woman within your family. You reincarnate through your family. So we'll bring you into the world through your family, that type of thing. If your family doesn't want you back, you're not coming back, that kind of so. And one of the ways that your family denotes they don't want you back is by not burying you. They'll wrap you up and put you in what's called ajofia, or the evil forest, as it's been translated. And this is a forest who, based on the readings of the energy of the forest, has a holding capacity. It holds things in. So the things that you don't want to spread out, you put them in there, right? So if you're an agile Moor, if you have a bad spirit, they can put you there. And see, this never happens unless you've done one of those things, those arrow that I named: incest, murder, suicide. I forgot to mention suicide is also one of them. Suicide is also considered an abomination. Arrow, suicide, all these different, like those, the ones that I listed earlier, they're like the big ones. Not like, oh, this person was like abusive. That you can still, as unfortunate as it sounds, the person can still return if the family chooses, or family gives them a full funeral. But just if the family decides, like, yeah, the person didn't commit aru, but man, we're good on all that, then yeah, that's good. And this isn't a particularly Igbo concept; it's a universal concept, right? So, and I always use the example of Osama bin Laden. There was a reason the U.S. made sure that nobody knows where he was buried, right? If he was buried, that kind of thing. Some people say he was thrown in the ocean. They made sure that nobody knew, made sure there was no grave marker, that kind of thing, because they don't want, when you visit somebody's grave, when you build a grave to somebody, when you have a funeral, you have invited that spirit to continue and exist and proliferate throughout the world, that type of thing, right? one of the essences we have is more, right? And this essence is as important as our physical presence. More is like your aura or your spirit and that type of thing. And what I will into the world can happen just by my more or my spirit alone, by my spirit alone, right? It doesn't always have to be done by my hands or my physical hands. One of the ways I often describe more is when you walk into a room, if you're happy and everybody else is depressed, you'll become a little bit more depressed. They'll bring you down a little more. Meanwhile, you being happy brings them up a little more. So that's the kind of impact that more has. More can lift and carry and move things without a hand, right? It can, there's a way that, for example, there you can read a certain, like, let's say a book, right? Autobiography of Malcolm X. A lot of people's thinking change, or a lot of people's thinking synced with his more just by reading his life story and taking in that more. But if we as a society for some reason, or another society for some reason, doesn't want that spirit proliferating and doing his will through either other people or through his name, they can burn all the books. They can make sure he's not buried. They can make sure there's no tomb to him, that type of thing, no statues built. At the same time, you can engineer a city, a home, a society to have a certain more based on the statues you erect, right? If for everybody that's from America, which is probably most of you, there's the Confederate statues, right? That was a big controversy. There's a reason those things were erected, that type of thing. A lot of Roman and Greek things that all over the place. Certain people that we want to celebrate because that spreads that more of their essence, the eternal essence they have throughout the city, and it keeps them alive. So somebody asked a question. Give me 1 minute. Do you destroy all false staffs? Oh yeah, I ventured off. So do you destroy all false staffs? Yes, you can reject an all false staff if it doesn't work, right? Let's say you inherit one and it's not working, you can reject it. Now, this is why I would say be careful with that, because oftentimes, like, let's say somebody gives you an all fall, or let's say you have an all fall made and that type of thing. The all fall working is really up to you. The all is a means of keeping you accountable to your principles. So if you're going around, let's say I have not done this, I've not done this, and then you run outside the house and start doing it, you can cut up and throw away all the all you want. You're the all that's broken, right? That kind of thing. Another thing is, if a person wants to dispose of an all there is a specific ceremony for doing it, right? A lot of families in the early 2000s where I'm from, and I don't like telling stories that sound supernatural, because believe it or not, based on, I have a particular, my channel has a certain feel to it. But my mind doesn't work that way, right? So it's hard for me to even tell these stories because they sound funny to me. But but at the same time, I'm not going to deny what has been presented, just period, what people can see, that type of thing. So a lot of families in the early 2000s, in one of my videos, I told a story about a pastor that was like going nuts, and like he came into town and his whole thing was that he was convincing the poor people that the offer of the rich people or the prominent people in the community was making them poor, that's what's making them poor, and that they, the poorer people and the women, mainly the women, need to get these all and destroy them and burn them and all that stuff. So he started his own little, basically like the Taliban, right? And it's funny too. We always talk about like radical Islam, and like, especially in Nigeria, we talk about these things, but like, a lot of if a group of Muslims ran into a church and burned it down, we would be talking for weeks. But every day in Nigeria, they'll go burn that shrine, and that's just them, that's their beliefs, that kind of thing. So I think it's kind of hypocritical. But this particular pastor was telling everybody to go burn the all-falls of other people. So what happened one day is that a group of youths were going through house to house, telling people to bring their all-fall, they're going to destroy it, that kind of thing. And a lot of them complied. Some of them fought back. Eventually, the group dispersed, and once that pastor killed a sacred python, that was the end of it. They sent him away. That was the last straw. Even the women that were because they couldn't get rid of him, because all the older women, the matrons of the community, liked him. They supported him. He was very charismatic, and they liked what he was, and they liked church. And so, but once he did the python thing, even they were like, no, we're good. Just send him away. So But what ended up happening was a lot of the families that ended up destroying the alpha, either voluntarily or by force by that group, started having a lot of things happen to them. A lot of specifically young men started dying, just like there's like regular dying of young men started happening. So there was this big rush for everybody to get their family alpha rebuilt and things like that. Now, according to my data, most families that destroyed their own have rebuilt it at this point because they felt inclined to do it, because of what ended up the chain of events that ended up happening. Now, as far as what was causing these things, that's up for debate, that's up for interpretation. But those families themselves who were Christian, and many of them said, we're burning this thing because it's the devil, then said, oh, oops, and ran back and started doing it. So there's a specific way to dispose of an all-fall that is inherited or passed down to you. If you make your own all-fall, you can do what you want with it. But again, it is internal. All-fall during why it's within, right? So if your all-fall is not working, it's because you're not working. You're the all-fall that's not working, you know? Do you have any tips for those of us who live in the West who do not have access to sacred relics but would like to practice these traditions? It's a very good question. And I had one of my patrons, or one of the members of our Patreon community, ask this question. And the question is, I was hoping it would pop back up in the live, right? So, yes. Yes, I do have advice for that. So, and it's a tough question to answer, right? So a lot of you already have something within your family that is awful. It may not necessarily be the specific Igbo or fall, but a lot of you have something that is, passed down from generation to generation to generation, or represents the accord, the union between your family, their ancestors, and God, and the land that they're on. But you're not looking at it as all fault because it's not the specific Igbo one, right? If you do not have one, a lot of the times, in order to form all fault, it has to be that thing that has that meaning for you. So let's say you go back to Ibo land and you get an all fault made and you come back and nobody in your family thinks this thing has any significance. They don't care, right? It's not all fault, right? Some of you may not want to hear this, but a lot of times a family Bible might be the all fault of your family, right? If you look at traditions like hoodoo, obe, Santeria, all these things, they actually speak to the adaptive, my ocelj, I put ocelj in my mouth. It's like there are these little seeds, and one of them, I didn't know it was in there. It just kind of popped back up out of nowhere. So my bad for being nasty. But a lot of these things, right? A lot of families already have these things, and a lot of the diaspora-based African traditions are that's basically, in essence, the same thing as what's going on back home, but they have adapted to their environment. They've completely adapted to the environment. So here are some things I would advise. I would find the thing in your family that represents that awful, right? If you cannot find a thing, you can make a thing. Now, what I'm going to say is going to sound kind of morbid to the contemporary Western educated ear. The ultimate awful is aja, is sand, right? Sand is awful. Aja is awful. So what you can do is gather sand that is important to your family and has meaning to your family, the type of sand that a person would not hold and lie, right? Very often, sand from a grave site of the founder of the family, if it is possible, right? That type of thing. Often, when there's trial that's held and an all can't be brought, sand from a grave of an ancestor is used, right? Sand itself is used, soil itself is used, but if you don't believe, a lot of us who are in diaspora don't feel that this particular land is sacred to us. So it can't just be any sand, any US soil, right? If I'm in my community, my village, all of that sand is sacred to me. All of that soil is sacred to me, right? So it's all fault to me. But there are sacred parcels of soil in this country, right? That it can work. So soil, sand is all fault. Sand is all fault. If you pick it up and you swear, you are holding all fault when you do it. Because the all fault, if you watch the video, I break it down. The all fault is a manifestation of earth, Anna. And then from Ana, a manifestation of Nechuku or Eke or Kamosu, which is the divine feminine, which is creation, right? So again, I said that everything in there's those two things, Chineke, Madonna Mo, Allah Nigwe, that kind of thing. All of this speaks to the fact that Chineke is God, right? But it also means creator and creation. And it is also the formula that everything is created by, right? So every single thing that is created is a part of is represents itself as one or the other. That's why oftentimes you'll hear people say, or I often say that this is for men, this is for women, this is for men, this is for women, because that thing, based on how it manifests, right, it then switches over and becomes whatever. So the Ofo, when you have an Ofo, you have married that Ofo, right? And that Ofo is a woman, you understand? And you are, this is going to sound kind of out there. It is a procreative relationship, right? So you can marry whoever you want, but for a procreative relationship, it has to be gender opposite, right? That kind of thing. So usually all is held by men. Now there are women who ritually become men and they hold the all and they have the all, and that's usually postmenopausal, and she has wives and her own house, that kind of thing. So she's built a house and she has a wife and she has a title of a man, and then she holds the all, that kind of thing. So it's based off the meaning. Now that is the first recommendation is sand, aja, right? Sacred sand, sand that is sacred to you, right? Or that is sacred to your family. Sand that you can say, this is sand from this place, and everybody in the family will respect it, right? Another one I would say is go home, and by home I mean Africa, and get one made. You understand? Because oftentimes the journey to acquire these things will give it the power it needs to have, right? Eventually, this will become popular enough that you can buy all fall at Walmart, right? Eventually, just knowing how the mechanics of this particular society I'm in works, this will become popular enough where, you'll get some woman, maybe her name is Cindy, and she'll be selling all fall on Etsy, that kind of thing, eventually, right? And you'll be able to click a button and it comes to you, right? And the ease by which that thing was acquired would make it very difficult for it to ultimately be awful to you, right? It'll make it very difficult for it to be awful to you. So those of you who grew up Christian, you can go buy a Bible anywhere. But if you have a Bible in your family that was passed down from your great, great, great grandmother to her daughter, to her daughter, to her daughter, to her daughter, and it lands in your hands and it's your time to hold it, that thing is not an ordinary Bible anymore. That thing has now become awful. That thing has a gravity, right? If I took that particular Bible and started tearing it up, you're going to probably fight me, right? Because I've done something egregious, right? I'm sure to a Christian, if you tear up any Bible, it's going to be an issue. But that particular one is a bond between you, your ancestors, your history, your land, your God, all of those things, right? So find the thing in your family that has that meaning, if there is a thing. If there is not, go home, get one made. The journey to go there and get one and come back is what makes that thing awful. That is what will make that thing awful for you, right? And as you pass it down generations and generations and generations, that all fall is going to have the story of you who was here. You found out where you were from within Africa. You went to Africa. You had your all fall made. You returned with this all fall. And this is the thing that you're going to use to represent the bond between you and your ancestors. Not just your ancestors in Africa, your ancestors are here in the United States, Jamaica, Haiti, all these different places, Brazil, all these different places. The bond between you guys represent it. So sometimes the journey, they say, oh, we fight. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? Exactly, right? There are things that you already have in your family that are awful. There are things you already have in your family that are awful. And oftentimes when I talk about these concepts, Odinani is about the relationship you have with these concepts more than the concept itself. So I use the example of the swearing on the Bible, right? Because if that Bible is all fault to you, the relationship you have with it is, as I'm holding this thing, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to dishonor this particular thing. There are people who, oh, my great grandfather has a purple metal from Korea, and it's in the family, right? Now, if maybe you come on hard times and you sell it or whatever, but all those things that have that meaning, that have that significance of tying you back to that ancestor, they're not things that people let go of easily, right? You've heard of the term family jewels. In Europe, the crown is awful. That thing is in the scepter, right? Once you become a king, you get a crown and a scepter, right? Those two things are awful. You understand? And as I hold these things, I now represent everybody that's come before me, and I'm representing those that are going to hold it and come after. I've become one with this particular lineage, right? That type of thing. So those are the things, right? Try to think about these things in abstract as much as you think about them in the literal sense. But I would always advise to go home and get it. We're going to reach a point where you're going to be able to buy these things at Target, right? And if those ones have meaning to you, fine. But it is not about having that thing or saying, oh, I have this specific relic or whatever. It is about having something in your life that has that meaning. Now, the alfa is held by the father of the house, the man of the house. You understand? That is the person that holds the alfa. So as a man, if whoever's asking is a man, or if there are men listening, as a man, having that thing in your life that is sacred, that you do not lie when you hold, and that you are upkeeping to pass it on to the next generation, is extremely important, specifically as a man, right? It's a very important thing in building. They say that the alfa makes a complete man. That's the they say in Igbo, of course, but the statement is that the alfa makes a complete man, that once you have an alfa, you're a complete man, right? That type of thing. Because the way we see it, your duty in society is to be the constant, right? Is to be a foundation. That if you're talking, I know that the words coming out of your mouth are concrete and I can build something on top of them. You don't lie, you don't talk frivolously, you're not a gossiper, you don't waste your words, or you don't speak anyhow, right? Um, I try to keep to this principle or to this standard, right? And like if somebody's coming at me for one reason or another, which happens every now and then online, as I've gotten older, I've learned that my words are valuable. Let me leave this one alone, that kind of thing. But when I was younger, I was wilding out, that kind of thing. So once you begin the process of becoming a complete man, those are part of the things that you learn, and those are part of things that are important. That type of thing. You hold on, wait. Buy on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, yeah, they'll hell yeah. There's somebody in China right now listening, talking about, okay. So yeah, it's coming, it's coming. But again, and yeah, you can buy those ones when they come too. But in the end, that thing has to have meaning for you. That thing has to have meaning for you. It's about the meaning that it has. It's about the effect that it has. The person I asked earlier, can you dispose of an all-fall? Absolutely. If you have this thing and it doesn't have that, if that's not what it means to you, get rid of it. A lot of people that set up altars, like even myself, you end up changing it as you grow. I have a good friend who he got a tattoo of his ikenga, right? And it was a very martial military ikenga. It was a fighting ikenga, right? But he's older now, and he doesn't value fighting prowess the way he values diplomacy, the ability to make peace, maybe the ability to hold a community together, that kind of thing. So now he wants to get the tattoo changed, right? All of that is growth. It is signs of growth, because these things are external projections of what is within. All fall therein, why is within, that kind of thing. So you mentioned a criteria for a woman holding the all fall. What about nuclear families, but the husband is still Christian? We can't practice it then. Good question. Yeah, because a lot of times it's like, maybe but that guy don't know, or that the other person doesn't know. Oh man, good question. It's still Christian minded. Well, talk to him. Every man is a result of what his significant other wants, and I specifically say man, right? Every man is a result. There, talk to him. If it's something that you guys want, that you want practiced, or something that you want in your own home, maybe show him the video. Maybe show him this chat. If he thinks I'm talking nonsense or it doesn't make any sense, then yeah, that's kind of going to end there. Maybe his Bible will become the all-fall for the family, right? Those types of things, maybe because for a lot of Christians, that's what it is. Maybe their crucifix, a lot of Christians, their crucifix. It's not something that they play around with. Some of them have like a prayer rope. I don't know what it's called. It's not something they play around with. So I would meet him where he's at, but try to say, hey, I want you to take a listen to this and that kind of thing. And he'll probably be freaked out that we're talking about him right now, but I'm talking to you, man. I'm just kidding. But Ndewo Nile, hey, Ndewo. What is Iwa, please? Okay, and I think you had asked in need. I think you had asked this question about EU on one of the comments. So I was trying to figure out what you meant. Do you mean A, Iuwa, or B, Iluwa? A, Iuwa, or B, Iluwa? So let me know. Rosary, yeah, that's a good example. I'm Jamaican born and just found out my maternal line is 100% Igbo, which is something I hear very often with Jamaicans. I think the history was that for Jamaica, they specifically targeted towards the ending days of slavery. They specifically targeted Igbo females and men from Twi or Ashanti heritage in Ghana. They were very specific about that. But yeah, you mentioned criteria for now. I already passed that one. Just found on maternal line. I wish I knew which village. Man, yeah. 100% Igbo. I wish I knew which village. How can we reconcile that? I don't know if you've done a DNA test, but if you do a DNA test, reach out to your DNA cousins. I know I'm very good friends with a lot of people who are in organizations such as DNA Tested Africans, or just people who are in the who have tested their DNA and they've kind of begun a journey, or they want to understand a little bit more. So reach out to your cousins, and then you'll start seeing patterns. You'll start seeing where they are from, that type of thing. Don't be surprised if they're from different places, but the ones that recur. And then after that, it is up to you to choose, because even I myself, I have multiple villages within me, right? I have multiple villages within me. I have multiple communities within me. Everybody does. So after that, it's just a matter of choosing based on what resonates with you, I would say. But if you do it and you're seeing that all of them they're all from I don't know, Owerri, or they're all from Nsukka, then okay, then that's what it is. So I'd reach out to your DNA cousins. Hey, Derek, how about those of us who had Agun shrines that were destroyed because of slavery in the West? What happens to us? So are you saying that because of the transatlantic slave trade, they built an Agun shrine and it was destroyed, or do you mean they had an Agun shrine before coming? The Agun shrine, if you had an Agun shrine at home before coming, it's probably still going, unless the family just decided that they were white-eyed and white, as they say at home. They were Christian now. So maybe it's still, if it was in your family prior to the slave trade, it's probably still alive. It's probably still going. It's probably still kept up. And we always emphasize people that like abandon things and destroy it. A lot of Christians don't touch these things. They leave it alone. They still respect it and honor it, but it's just not for them at home. The relationship, I don't think we talk about back home how symbiotic the Christian and traditional relationship is oftentimes, because a lot of the research and undigging and uncovering is done by reverend fathers, particularly the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, but mainly the Catholic Church. So yeah, but if you had an Agun shrine before the transatlantic slave trade, it's probably still alive. If one was destroyed, you can always rebuild it. And rebuilding that Agun shrine is a part of the process of Irun Agun, or the rebuilding or making peace with Agun, which literally means Irun, like to build Agun, right? So it's putting that shrine back together again, right? And that is the process of embracing and accepting that you have Agun, or that Agun is strong in your family, and that it is strong in your family for a specific purpose. It is there to serve the world, right? Agun is selfless. It serves others. It doesn't serve itself. So whatever gifts you have, be they extrasensory. If you have Agun in your family, you're going to have like extrasensory capacities and abilities, that type of thing. And then from there, it's just rebuilding that shrine, making peace with that part of yourself, and then using that thing to benefit other people, not trying to benefit yourself with it. And then the Agun Shrine exists, one, as a headquarters for you to do your work as a healer, but also to let you know that this thing is a member, Agun is a member of your family, like a cousin or a brother or a father or a mother, that kind of thing. It is a member of your family. Your children will need to see it like, hey, this is, part of our heritage. This is one of the things that you inherit. Like I said, I had a good conversation with one of the patrons the other day, and she was aware that her family had this in the maternal line. It usually spreads maternally, and their maternal line, and that she is an inheritor of it, and she's getting, it's kicking in. It's kicking in. So an Agun shrine can be rebuilt. There are specific ways to rebuild it. I can do a video on rebuilding Agun, rebuilding or building an Agun shrine or building a shrine to Agun, or the ceremony for embracing Agun. But I've done a brief overview in my video, Agun Explained. Right? I'll type it in for those who may not know how to spell that particular concept. So if you search the term Agun Explained, you'll see the video where I cover this particular concept. Chief Chinyere Eri Anyanwu Ututu. Ndewo, yes, we'll be happy to guide you regarding DNA. We are DNA tested Africans. Yes, Chief Chinyere is the authority for DNA testing. As far as reconnecting back home, Chief Chinyere, if she doesn't mind me sharing her story, was able to test, find out her lineage, go back to the community of Nri and do a ceremony where she received the chieftaincy title and that type of thing, and made her stamp in the community official. So now she has embarked on a mission of helping others with the process of DNA testing and reconnecting and so forth. So reach out to her if you're interested in that. But oftentimes once you start getting the results for your DNA cousins, once you start having those conversations, you will then start knowing which village and which communities that you are linked to and connected to and that type of thing. So it's a very awesome thing that she does. And she's the person to reach out to. Agun Shrines Vegan. Could you say more about the more? More. Okay, my apologies. Yeah, I was trying to disrespect. More is MMOU. So yeah, but yeah, can you say more about more? Can it be used to create events, loft? Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a video called More Explained, so check it out. It goes into what more is, and more is a very vast and complicated concept. But more is, once you get into understanding everything that I'm talking about on a practical level, and you gain confidence in your ability to work with it, what you see as spirit work, what they call spirit work, or what they call all these different things, is working with more the way you would work with sand, or work with herbs, or you would work with, you're building a house with materials, is being able to use more as a material, right? To do things, or to actualize things, or to see and delve into things. Anything you can imagine can be done with more. So things like law of attraction, things like to create events, yes, can be used to create events and so forth. Now, I would have to do an entire video on how to use more practically. Now, if you guys have watched my 4 World Ages video, you will know that we are in Ugazi. And so we are all completely reckless as people. So I feel hesitant just sharing that with people, because I don't know what they're going to end up doing with it, since we're now Umwazi, right? Ugazi is the age of spiritual deprivation or spiritual disconnect. And people are very much, anything that you put in hands of people is used for destruction, is what the ancestors say for Ugazi. So I don't know if this is necessarily a thing to share before they start selling more on Amazon and shit too. So, but yeah, more can be used to create events. It can be used for attracting. It can be used to do just about anything. 99% of what you see around you, 99% of what you do, is using more to do XYZ. This thing that I'm communicating, my communication, is using more to do XYZ. Sometimes I can smile, and then maybe you've smiled back at home, that kind of thing, or it's made you feel that spirit of that type of thing. All of that is the use of more. If I came here angry and I was yelling and getting everybody fired up, you guys all getting fired up, that's the application of more on a very practical, day-to-day, everyday sense. Now, there's a deeper application of more, which is what DBS and Is and Why do. But there are oaths and agreements and a particular offer, that is the the Agon ceremony, right? A particular offer that a dibia or an ezengwai holds that keeps them from abusing the knowledge or the ability to use that particular thing. It is very interesting because the shrine for Agon has two, or let me say the shrine of Agon in the Anambra region, I think it varies, or the Omambala, the river, not all of Anambra is Omambala, but the Omambala region is, which is a river, is they'll take 8 ogrishi sticks, which are medicinal sticks, and they'll bind them together, right? They'll make 2 of them because Agon is 2-headed. There's a male Agon and a female Agon. The female Agon is the one within. When you go deep within your inner mind, that's her. The one that looks out, the outwards, is the Okagon, the male Agon, but they are merged. They are hermaphroditic, for lack of a better term, right? And so, Agon comes with 2 or 4, and it's a part of the Agon altar where you take 8 ogrishi sticks, you put one on one side, another 8, bind them together, put them on the other side. There are also other parts and parcels to the Agon thing. I have an Agon folder in the medicine library. So if you are a patron at patreon.com/the medicine shell, you can go there, and it is in the folder Agon. It actually breaks down how to make an altar for Agon. And then if you can't find it, message me. I'll send you the link. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with more, and I'll be teaching it throughout the existence of this video. I'm not going to share anything that can be dangerous or could be manipulated to do anything crazy. And I will keep what I share at a practical, approachable level, and that type of thing. Because again, like I said, there's going to be a lot of wildness is going to start happening as this becomes more popular or more widespread and that kind of thing. And I don't want to contribute to that. So there's a lot that, as far as how to use more, I'm going to keep to myself. There's a lot that I don't know because I'm not a dibia. And there's a lot that even if I learned it, I'm probably not going to share it or whatever, because this is Ugazi and it's, and I'm not trying to contribute to madness. So there's a couple of videos he released on More. Yeah, check out the video More Explained. And then I kind of consider it a twin video to it, Ancestors Explained. They go together very well. So check out the video More Explained. I'm going to type it, MMOU Explained. You type that into YouTube and you're going to be able to pull it up, and it goes, you can go in there, and that type of thing. Anyanwu Tutu, I have to get up with you because I would like some assistance with that. Awesome. Still reaching my family history. Okay, Malachi Lee says, still reaching for my family history in connection to the Igbo people. I'm from Maryland, D.C. area. Yeah, if your family has been in the Maryland, D.C. area for generations, the odds of you having Igbo ancestry is extremely high. So the history of Igbo ancestry in the United States is interesting. But the enslavers did not focus on getting Igbo slaves until towards the ending of slavery. The Americans, the United States, on the other hand, and when I say the first statement, I mean worldwide, right? The Americans were particular to look for Igbo slaves, you understand? Because there are a lot of communities in Igbo land that were known for ironsmithing. They were known for ironsmithing or having a lot of practical tools. And this isn't to say that Igbo people are like smarter or whatever, but the population of Igbo land is extremely dense. Before this era, it was written that the 2 densest places in Africa were the Nile Valley and Igbo land, right? So right now, if you're driving, I'm from a place called Imo State. If you're driving in Imo State, right, and you just keep going, you're never going to see a part where there's like wide open land. Once you hit a particular patch, it's always just there's going to be like it's a mixture of trees and houses, trees and houses, trees and houses. And you'll be driving, you don't know you've passed like 3, 4, 5 towns, but it all looks like one big town, just like you're driving in one single town, kind of a sparse town, but you're driving in one town because people are so packed together in Igbo land. There's a lot of population there. So what this causes is that a lot of people aren't going to be rich off of farming. So there's a lot of craft work that happened with our ancestors and traditionally making boats, making tools, making weapons. I know the people of Nkwere were known for making guns, right? Before Nkwere and Oka were known for making guns, surgery, all practical tools that you can learn. And then because of that density, A lot of them will get up and travel to other communities where that skill is not well known, so they can be the person that knows that thing, and then of course make money and then come back to their community and so forth. So because there was a lot of skilled labor in Igbo land, the Americans, which was more, America was more industrialized or closer to industry than a lot of the other places in the Caribbean. So the Americans would target these people because they needed people to make, forget what you heard. Like they always talk about cotton, right? But why would I look for a very buff man to come pick cotton? Why would I check what tribal marks they have in their face to pick cotton? What does it matter? You understand? But they were checking all these things. Why would I check the health of their teeth and their height and all these different things for cotton? The range of things that Africans were brought to the United States to do will blow your mind. This was the original skilled labor force of the United States. Forget anything you heard. That's why you're going to kill over and over in the 1800s. You keep hearing this thing. This person learned how to do this from a black person. This person learned how to do this from a black, so on and so forth. That's just what that is. Anybody that wants to debate that, I'm here to debate it. That kind of thing. The AME, the Black Baptist Church, the symbol is an anvil, a smith's anvil for ironsmithing, right? So the diversity of things that people were brought, anyways, yeah. So because they knew there was a lot of ironsmithing going in Igbo land, Americans targeted a lot of Igbo slaves, particularly in the South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland area. That particular area, there was a big target of it because it was right next. It was as close as you can be to the industrialized North, right? Without being in the industrialized North. So you can make the tools they need to build their factories here completely free with your slave labor, and then sell it to the people in New York and Pittsburgh and all these different places and Pennsylvania, all that stuff, right? That type of thing. So a lot of Americans have Igbo ancestry, particularly those in Virginia, South Carolina, that general area, Maryland and so forth, North Carolina, all that stuff. So yeah, so that's why a lot of people, when they do DNA testing in the US, they find Igbo ancestry. So, how do we get in contact? Please talk about Iluwa, which is option A. I forgot my options. Why do you keep skipping my question? No, I'm not skipping your question. I asked you the two things. You gave me the thing, right? But I don't know what you're trying to say, right? So I think option A, which was Iluwa, which is Iuwa, I think is universal stream, Iuwa, right? Iuwa is the stream that you came into the world with, right? It is the stream that you came in the world through. The EUY, your universal stream. So that means that when you're doing that reincarnation process, the pipeline that you came through is the EUY. EUY becomes important because with a lot of Obanje, their EUY is represented by something physical. And part of the process of exercising Obanje is finding that EUY, that physical thing. So if that's what you mean, then that's what EUY. Iluwa with an L, right, is reincarnation. It is exactly what I described in the beginning. You pass away, you go to Chi, you receive your mission, you go to Eke, you make your oath, and then you come in the world, right? So EUY and Iluwa are connected, right? So if either or, the A or the B, that's what they are. I'm not deliberately skipping your question. I was trying to understand what you were saying. And I didn't understand it when you asked the first time. So how long will we be in this age? I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I did know. My apologies for not having an answer on that. I don't know how long the ages last. I don't know how long we'll be in Ugazi, but because the ages are cyclical, the next age will be Ugaka, which would be interesting because the description of Ugaka based on my Ugazi mentality and mind frame is unimaginable, right? So if you are interested in knowing about the four world ages, I have a video called Uga Explained that you can check out. And that particular video is going to tell you the different ages, what all four of them are, and how they are cyclical, and how we'll return to that one. Igbo Village is in Staten. I think I'll say Staten. I'm not good with reading. Staten, Virginia. Yeah. Okay. Yes. The Igbo Village is even in Virginia. So absolutely, and it was put in Virginia for a reason. It was put in Virginia. Even the Igbo Landing, the famous event at Igbo Landing, I want to say was either South Carolina or Virginia, but I think South Carolina, but it's the same general area that I'm talking about. How long will be the South Carolina? Answer that. Could you talk about the role of eggs in Igbo culture? My maternal grandma used to keep them throughout the house. Eggs represent rebirth and renewal. And so oftentimes eggs are used in the process of bringing something into the world. Eggs are also used in the process of cleansing. Eggs are also a substitute in a lot of altars and a lot of shrines, a substitute for blood, right? So some altars don't take blood, they take egg yolk. Our in-house Divya did a phenomenal job of breaking this down to me, but it was so out there that I hesitated to believe him until I started seeing it pan out in different places. I was like, oh, he was 100% right, that kind of thing. But what he told me was that when you do ajahn, when you do a sacrifice, the blood is not what is important. It is the plasma around the blood that is being targeted. That is the main thing, right? So that the way everything manifests in twos, if the blood or the platelets of the blood is the madu, the plasma serves the purpose of more. And if you understand the role of plasma and the relationship of plasma and the blood cycle, you'll understand your own relationship with more a little bit better, right? That kind of thing. So the plasma is where new blood is created, is where new blood or the new platelets are created from. It is also the one that retains things of the blood and so forth. So egg yolk also has that plasma, that same plasma membrane. And so it works as an alternative. Funny enough, honey is also often used in a lot of altars. That's why with in the US, I know Oshun is as far as Ifa, Oshun is very popular here in the diaspora and that type of thing, at home too. And everybody knows, or a lot of people know, the connotation between Oshun and honey and that kind of thing. So honey is also one of those, though I don't know if honey has the same plasma membrane or the same plasma or whatever, but that plasma is what is targeted in the blood. And eggs also have that same plasma. So eggs are used in a lot of different things. Eggs are used in building altars. Eggs are used in sacrifice. Eggs are used in like cleansing, that type of thing. Eggs are used medicinally. The shells, that plasma aspect, or the egg itself. There's a lot of roles that eggs play, and perhaps I'll do a video on it soon enough. The way I pick my videos, by the way, is through your comments. So I think tomorrow I'm going to put up a vote to see what video people want to see next in the Patreon. And it's going to be based off of what people have requested in the comments. I want to see a video about this. Can you do a video about that? I'll gather it between everything you guys have said requested between the last video and now, right? Between the last video and now. And then I will put it up for vote on Patreon. Then the two that win, I'll put it up for vote for everybody on all social media platforms that I can, so that you people oh no, you guys will determine the order that they come out. So whichever one wins will come out first, and the next one will come out second. So yeah. So he addressed your question and asked for clarification. Okay, cool. You mentioned the Agas waiting. That's why I'm here. Father's side is all Tidewater, Virginia. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome. Biatology. Adai. So yay, Imo State. Yes, Imo State in the house. Yeah, Chimoge, Imo State again. Awesome. Those of you guys that are from Imo State, where are you from? Who else is from RG here? Okay, cool. How close is the village to Norfolk? I'm not sure the distance from Norfolk. Okay, cool. South Carolina, cool. Igbo slaves were known. Yes, Igbo slaves were known for running, escaping, rebelling. They were even the ones that cooperated. Like they were known for, like, if you wanted them to cooperate, you couldn't disrespect them too much. That was one of the rules. Like, they made handbooks on how. I hate to laugh about this because it's so morbid, but they made handbooks on how to deal with these things, and they had isolated that Igbo slaves and Twi, Ashanti, Ghanaian slaves were the two most notorious to run away. Igbo slaves were the most notorious to kill themselves, to commit suicide. Now, if you understand the meaning of suicide in Igbo culture and Igbo cosmology, suicide is saying, I don't want to return, right? So it's not saying that I don't like what's going on, I want to come back again. It means I'm out forever. I don't want to reincarnate. Now, if you've read the book Things Fall Apart, I've seen a lot of analysis of this book and things like that. That's the one part they forget or that maybe they don't know, right? Is that when Okonkwo at the end, when he commits suicide, he's not committing suicide to kill himself. He's committing suicide to never return again. That he sees the world that is on the way. He sees the world that is coming. He sees the world that the missionaries are bringing and how the community is switching over. And he says, I'm out. This is not the world I want to be in. So that gives a lot of gravity to like things like Igbo landing, and then the frequency of suicide with Igbo slaves and stuff like that. So they were notorious for fighting, rebelling, and then if they did cooperate or if they did finally calm down, if you disrespected them, they would start all over again. So, and even back home, there's a really funny kind of meme video somebody made. This is no disrespect to Yoruba people or anything like that, but usually like a lot of memes in Nigeria, like it'll be like how Yoruba people do this, how Igbo people do this. There was one where like they slapped the Yoruba guy. The guy goes, you slapped me? Oh yeah, slap me again. And they slapped him again. He like draws lines like, oh yeah, cross the line and slap me again, that kind of thing. But then Igbo, when he slapped, he just comes right at you, that kind of thing. So it's just it's what we're known for. It's kind of a stereotype that gets laughed at a lot. They're being very if we are disrespected, we can even die. Like it's life or death at that point. So roll of eggs, okay, I did that one. Hall has a great book of the different groups of Africans targeted and transported in certain areas in America. The name of it escapes me. I'm glad you said that name. I'll go back and try to Google it. Anytime somebody recommends something, I always get the inclination to go look things up. So what I was talking about this in our group chat on Patreon. I end up doing like a lot of times after some conversations, I'll just be stuck for hours just drifting around the internet looking at different things. So, but it all enriches me and all helps me. It's all rewarding. So thanks for recommendation. I'll try to check out the book. But yeah, they wrote instructionals. What was actually funny was, ultimately, I think I've talked about this often because it kind of surprised me, blew my mind. The formula for enslaving people in the United States was to disconnect them from their original culture, disconnect them from any semblance of that thing, separate them, break them up, that type of thing, and then make sure to kind of indoctrinate them or bring them into life in the US. At the same time, the enslavers in the US, especially if they were rich, would avoid being the ones that punished, right? So because they wanted you to think that they were like the nice guy, like, oh, maybe the overseers being, and then the master comes like, oh no, take it easy, that kind of. So they wanted to, that's a propagandic thing. Now in the Caribbean, that wasn't happening. A lot of the Caribbean, like Haiti, different places in the Caribbean, Brazil, there were death camps. They were bringing you there to die, right? So they didn't care if you went to church. They didn't care if you integrated. They didn't care how you perceived them, whatever. You're just going to work. You're going to live a very short and brutal life, and they're going to replace you. They're going to do it in bulk, that kind of thing, right? So a lot of times what ends up happening in the Caribbean is that, and then like people do this thing where they say that like African culture is not as prevalent in the US as it is in the Caribbean. And I don't think that's true, right? I don't think it's true at all. I think in America, people had to hide it more, right? So they did a lot more things to hide it or to make it look like something else when it's actually another thing. They had to hide it more. In the Caribbean, they can do it as it was done. So then you look at it on kind of like a surface level and say, oh, okay, that's exactly how it's done at home, yada, yada. But then if you go over and you start talking to people, the things that their grandmothers and their grandfathers did, you start seeing that, oh, okay, it's the same thing as this, but it's not really that different. If you look at a lot of title societies, you look at a lot of Black fraternities in the US, the strolling, even I think it's the Noops with the cane, all those different things. You'll know exactly where those things came from if you know the history at home, or not where they came from, but like where the influence was from, that kind of thing, right? So what happened was, because there was a lot more chaos in the Caribbean and South America because of how it was structured, they decided to adapt the American system, right? And a part of that adaptation was looking for Igbo slaves. And then, of course, the demand because of industrialization of all that kind of thing. So that's why a lot of people, they can tell you, oh, I have an Igbo ancestor because it's a recent arrival slavery, right? It's harder to do that with like Congo and Yoruba and those types of things. But in those places, a lot of the African aesthetic of the culture is preserved because the overseers didn't care, right? So I don't know what caused that tirade, but it happened. But yeah, so Igbo Village is like, oh, cool. What is the connection between Igbo and Voodoo? What is the connection between Igbo and Voodoo? The things I'm discussing are the same things you're going to see with Voodoo. Now, earlier I was talking about more. I think we have more people in here. So let me, before I answer, if you're new, if you're just coming in and you didn't hear me say this already and you haven't done it already, hit like. Let me try to adjust. Hit like on this thing. It helps YouTube recommend it to people that have similar interests to you, and it's the easiest way to help the channel and contribute to this movement that we're on. So Voodoo, right, kind of specifically references the spirit work or the working with more. Earlier, somebody said that, can you use more to do this, and that? I said yes. So the application of that more is what Voodoo is particularly known for. Now, there is more to Voodoo than just that, right? There's more to Voodoo than just that, but what most of us interpret as Voodoo, right, is that thing. Is that particular thing is working with more. It's the science of working with more. So there are aspects of what I'm talking about that are not exactly the same thing as Voodoo, because it's maybe something else, right? Like tidal societies and all these different things. But then a lot of, when I start talking about more and Ogun, Dibia work is and why, it's the same thing with Voodoo, right? What is interesting is that a lot of the same conclusions that were reached in Voodoo are also reached in Norinani. I have a personal theory that we are all kind of the same people, that type of thing, and I have evidence to back it up, that type of thing. But I try to keep my own personal conclusions to a minimum, or at least warn you when they're coming, that type of thing. So, because my mission is to just put the facts out there and put the information out there, and then you can do as you wish with it, that type of thing. We have two Owerri people in here. My son hails from Owerri, Imo State. Everybody's from Owerri. Owerri is a blast. I love being in Owerri when I go home. We had our honeymoon in Owerri, though I have promised my wife another honeymoon, that kind of thing. We had a honeymoon in Owerri after we got married. It was super nice, very fun place to be. My dad. Okay, in Igbo, my dad said "afo stomach day." Afo, the market day word means stomach. Yes, can you explain that? So afo means earth, right? So afo is earth. So okay, the 4 market days encompass multiple things. There are 4 market days: Eke, Urie, Afo, and Kwa. They also encompass the directions. Eke is east, the direction that the sun comes from, right? That type of thing. Urie is west. Afo is north and Nkwo is south, right? And oftentimes in villages, the markets, each market is going to have a name, Eke, Uri, Afo, Nkwo, and they are configured based on that often, not always, but often. And then they have an elemental meaning. So Eke is fire, Uri is water, right? Like we say, anyways, yeah, AK is fire. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna drive a vehicle that's too fast for me. So yeah, AK is fire, Uri is water, Afo is earth, is sand. That's why you say Nwafo, son of the soil, right? Son of the soil is Nwafo, is sand. And then Nkwo is wind. Why? A hawk is Agun Nkwo, the Agun of the wind, right? The Agun of the wind, like Agun is also leopard, right? And then there's Agun Yi, which is the Agun of the water, which is a crocodile, that kind of thing. So then they have the elemental meanings. And then all of these different facets, right? So if Afo is earth, then earth there's a part of your body represented by all the different Abara. So this right here, my forehead, right here is Anyanwu, right? Is Anyanwu, which is the eye of light or the sun. So this is connected to the sun. So when they do Ichi marks, that's actually the sun rising. If you look at the pattern of the rays, it's the rising sun, right? That is Anyanwu that's connected here. So somebody who is enlightened, an elder or a wise person in Nze, will put the Ichi marks on their head. The Ichi marks are also, they came from, according to the chronology of the 4 world ages, they came in Ugaun, the age of Amu, the age of the sun, the age of light, right? So Afo is the earth, right? If this is the sun, this is the earth. Afo is connected to the earth. The stomach is the earth. And that is why, remember when I told you, when you come in, you go to Chuku, you get your purpose, you go into Eke, you make your oath. and then you come into the world through a woman, through her stomach, through the earth. You understand? So the stomach, afo, is earth. It's connected to earth um, in Igbo cosmology, in Igbo physical understanding, or metaphysical understanding. There you go. So afo is earth. So yes, it means stomach, it means earth, and then it means the market day afo. But all three are connected. All three are manifestations of the exact same movement in time and space. So yeah. The role of the oracle. Will you in the future discuss the role of the oracle in Igbo society? Yeah, definitely. I absolutely will. When I was talking earlier about Anyanwu, the forehead, there is a close association with Anyanwu and being an oracle, or being able to see events, or being clairvoyance, right? So in the East and the West, like let's say Eurasia, right? In Eurasia, you get the term your third eye, right? That's Anyanwu, and it's always put where? Your forehead, that kind of thing. So it's interesting how these things are universal, right? I definitely have that Igbo hatred for this. There's this video of all this kind of IPOB, the kind of thing going on. They're doing a protest, and a police officer is trying to shoot somebody, and the person just puts their head on the gun. It's like, oh yeah, kill me, that kind of thing. You know how many times I've heard, oh yeah, kill me back home? But you look at those things, they're kind of funny. They sound crazy, but they're funny. But we're not taking it, bro. We're not taking it. Bam. That's also one of the reasons why that kind of rebellious nature, right? So when I kind of want to do a video on this that goes into it, because I think we overstate the impact of colonialism on Igbo culture. And the reason I say that, it's going to sound crazy because I'm probably the only person saying this. The reason I say this was because the entire time the British were in Igbo land, which was maximum, right? For most communities, about 30 years, maximum 50. Which is not a long time historically. And when I say maximum, I mean like the communities on the border, like Onitsha, all these places. But even the colonization of Onitsha was very, it was, I think, 1910, around that time, right? And then the British left at about 1960s. By 50s, they were already on their way out. By World War II, they were already on their way out. So it wasn't that long, right? So the reason I bring that up is that the entire colonial experience in Igbo land was, for the British, a bunch of trial and error. They would try things, people would reject it, they would try another thing, people would reject it, they would try things of it, but then people would take in the things they saw beneficial, which the church is something they saw beneficial, education they saw beneficial, Western hospitals they saw beneficial. But when they start coming with their laws, like, okay, this person is going to be the warrant chief, he's the new chief that's going to head everything, riot, rebellion, protest, that kind of thing. Okay, we're going to scrap that. We're going to try this. So a lot of Igbo culture today is a bunch of floating British experiments, right? A lot of Igbo culture today is a bunch of floating British experiments where the British tried it. It didn't work. They let it go. Even when people talk about the Kingdom of Inri, for example, right? There was no Kingdom of Inri, right? Or Empire, or whatever it was called. It never happened, right? The British thought, okay, there's this very dense packing of people in this part of Africa. They all speak the same language. They all have generally the exact same culture. So it must be one country. Well, there must be a head, right? So they started looking for places that would be the head, because they were going to go to that place and kill everybody. And then once they kill everybody, then, usually in Europe, once you take the capital, you've taken the country, right? When you take Paris, you've taken France, you take London, you take England, that kind of thing, right? So we're going to kill everybody there. So the two places they suspected was Nri and Arochukwu. Now, why Nri and Arochukwu? One, Arochukwu was very rich and very active in that time, right? Very rich and very active in that time because of their role in the slave trade and all that stuff. But also because the British knows that when Arochukwu people would walk around, they can go from community to community with immunity. Like, people wouldn't harass them or check them at the gate. Who are you? Where are you coming from? That kind of. Once they knew you were from Aro, you can come in, right? There's a lot to that. There's a reason for that. And they also noticed that with people from Inri, that when they'd go places, people wouldn't do the same thing, right? Now, this is something I'll probably cover in a different video because a lot of people, it's controversial. right? But these same privileges are given to Osu people, right? If an Osu person goes from place to place, you can't do it. You leave them alone. You can't do anything to them. If an Osu person walks in your house and starts eating your food and leaves, that's just what it's going to be. If they go to your farm and eat, because there's something particular about those three people that I've named. But the British interpret as like, okay, these must be the kings of this place. So they went to Inri, they sacked the place, they killed a bunch of people, and they made the Eze Inri, the chief priest at that place. He came out, they made him come out and say that I'm a human being, I'm not a spirit, right? And they noticed that none of the other communities cared. Like nothing happened. It wasn't like, oh, Paris fell, that kind of thing. It was like, okay. So they go, okay, my bad. I think it was Arochukwu. So they went to Arochukwu. They sack Arochukwu. They burned the place. They even burned down the famous Chukwu shrine, Chukwu Abiyama shrine. They did all that stuff. And again, nobody else reacted. Then they realized that every single community was its own country. Every single town was its own country. And I mean, sometimes your allies will get upset that you got burnt down, things like that. But for the most part, it's not connected. So one of the experiments they did was like trying to like create kings. Like, okay, this is going to be the king of this place is going to be the king, because it was a democracy and they didn't want to do that. And then that was rejected, but we somehow that thing kept floating around. So now we have is in places they don't belong. And I don't know, it's a long, difficult thing. But yeah, the colonial experiments back home was trial and error. And then finally the British said, all right, I'm out. We're leaving. But they still held a resentment, right? If you look at a BBC Igbo, if you look at BBC Igbo, it's the most resentful, hateful broadcast I've ever seen in my life. You know, everything's always bad and disrespectful. Hey, Ike Chukwu, Nwafọ, Igadi, Igeto, Igeri. Ulo gị ga-eto, aka gị ga-eto, ihe ọbụla ị na-eme, ị ga-eto, ise. So no, Ikechukwu, thank you for your donation. I send my blessings to you. I really appreciate it. You guys are things like that. They really help the channel, so I appreciate it. Let me go back. I missed a couple of questions. What are some items that you can use for your altar for those of us in the West? Thanks. The items in the altar have to have meaning to you. So you have 4 essences, Eke, Orie, Afo, and Nkwo. You can represent them, right? You can find a way to represent those essences of yourself. And then from there, something that represents your ancestors. Now, one thing that I did, I had an altar just like you do anywhere else. It wasn't resonating with me, but I naturally garden. I like to grow plants. So what I did was, and I wish I can go outside and show you guys the altar right now, but I'm afraid that, I don't know, I'll lose connection or something, or do something crazy. So I have one pot. It's an Olmec head, right? I have like a square Olmec head. So somebody even said that recently. So I use that Olmec head to represent me, right? So I put that Olmec head and I planted a plant in it. It's growing very well now, you know. And I took a Buddha, the Buddha, and it represents Agun. Now, the reason I wanted to represent Agun is not because I'm a Dibia, but because as I grow older and I come to learn myself more, I come to learn that my chi brought me into the world for the purpose of teaching, for the purpose of discussing these topics, for the purpose of spreading. I think I just saw. Hey, Chief Chinyere, Njoku Eri 1 of Nri. Hey, aka na-arụ ihe ọma n'ụwa, Ada ndị Igbo. Thank you very much. Ihe na-eme ga-eto, ihe na-eme ga-adị, ị ga-adị, ụlọ gị ga-adị, ụmụ gị ga-adị, ị ga-amụ, ị ga-eri, ise. Cool. Thank you for your donation, Chief Chinyere. Thank you very much for that. Check out, if you're interested in DNA testing, as a Black person in America or anywhere, reach out to Chief Chinyere with DNA tested, or I'm sorry, I'm not going to say Chief Chinyere. You can type in the name if you want. I'm getting slipped up on my words. And I forgot what I was talking about prior. So that is the wonders of ADHD. We had, somebody had a very good question. If I cut your question in half, please ask again. The altar. So what I end up doing is I use the Olmec head, or the it's an Olmec, it's not Olmec, it's Easter Island. The Easter Island represents me. It's a flower pot. And then I use a Buddha to represent Agun. So I know that my chi brought me in the world for the sake of teaching. When I teach, I'm alive, I'm alert, I'm awake. This is heaven, right? This is what, when they describe heaven, this is what it feels like to me. So I know this is coming from my chi. This is natural to me, right? I'm in my elements, my ikenga right now. I'm despite forgetting things, that's never going to go away. But yeah, my ikenga is active, right? That type of thing. So all these things tell me my chi is connected to teaching. Maybe it's connected to teaching in a capacity I don't know yet, but I'm getting closer to figuring out what it is. So to honor that aspect of myself, I use the Buddha, right? The Buddha is known as a great teacher. I use a Buddha head and I put it next to the ear of the Olmec head. That it's, to represent that internal dialogue and so forth. And then I made an Omumu altar. So if you're a woman, which sounds crazy coming from me, but if you're a woman in particular, check out my video on Mumu Explained. A lot of women have asked me how can they get an Ikenga. It's like, yeah, you can get an Ikenga, but who are you trying to fight, right? Right? A woman's seat of power in the world is the Omumu, or the Omu. So check out the video Omumu Explained. So, but I built one because my wife and I we were trying for a child, and it's not like you can't do it or something bad's gonna happen if you do it, right? I set that one up there. And then I have a flower pot for every ancestor whose name, or a plant pot. Let me say plant pot for every ancestor whose name that I know, right? And so when I water them, I say their names, I water them, I say my names, I do my things there. So if you can't go home and get like the traditional items, as you can see with a lot of traditions like Hoodoo, Obe, Santeria, even Ifa in the West, using things that have meaning to you. People can use pictures of their ancestors. That's a very popular and a really good one. Something to represent each ancestor, something to represent yourself. And then as you come to learn yourself, you'll come to learn more about yourself and your chi and why it brought you into the world. You'll begin customizing and changing those types of things. Hey, Jim Gall, if I'm saying your name wrong, dude, Jim Gall, he say, hey, Jim Gall, I can Ruhyoma, one of the live stream. Igeto, Igeri, Hineme, Hineme Geto, Ijenge Ujoma, Ngozi ga-eru aka gị n'ọkọ ga dị n'eke n'ọkọ ga dị n'orie n'ọkọ ga dị n'afọ na nkwọ ise. With my very broken Igbo, I give you my blessings. Thank you very much for that donation, Jungal. It means a lot. But yeah, so I have a video called How to Build an Ancestral Altar, or that type of thing. So you can go through the steps there. And in the video, I made sure to structure it in a way that you can set up your own, that you don't need to go anywhere or buy this particular thing to make it happen. But as you grow and develop, there are things you're going to add. So for example, I'm going to wait till I go home to get my Ikenga, right? To get one made for me in the traditional sense. But a good friend of mine made a tattooed Ikenga on himself, and that was Ikenga for him. People have found different ways to represent that aspect of themselves. I use a stack of pots for my omumu. It never has to be complicated, expensive, or anything like that. It's just so long as you are representing you with that altar. There's an ilu that we were discussing in the last Odinani group chat, which was phenomenal, by the way. And also, if you're a patron, I apologize that the last group chat is not up yet for rewatch. Because the connection cut midway, I have to go in there and edit it so that it works, that kind of thing. So I'm still doing that, so it's coming. My apologies. But in the last discussion, there was an ilu that we brought up, and it goes back to this idea of altars, like what are they, right? The ilu was, and I'm going to post this, and again, I like to post ilus every now and then to see people's interpretations of it. The ilu was the person who does not know themselves does not know the gods they are making promises to, right? The person who does not, this is how you say it in English, the person who does not know themselves, does not know their self, does not know the God they are making promises to. Meaning that your altar is a projection or a representation of you. Now, remember what I said earlier. If you were in here earlier, right? If you're in here earlier, you'll remember the analogy I made with the box. If you spend your entire life living inside of a box, all you're going to know is maybe what's within the box. You're going to know the darkness of it. Maybe you're going to know where the walls are at, that kind of thing. When you step outside of the box, you're going to now see, oh, this is a purple box. It has a ribbon. It has polka dots. It has a back to sender packet. That you'll know details about it that you would not have known on the inside. So oftentimes these external representations are necessary or important so that you get a panoramic view of yourself, right? So when you build an altar and you have the different members of your family or your ancestors all represented there, all of them represented, and in the process of representing them, you're learning their names, you're learning their story, who they were. Ultimately, you're going to learn about yourself. and you're going to learn about your family to come, right? So again, the person who does not know themselves does not know the gods they're making promises to. That's the ilu that is used back home, right? So the altar, there's a video that explains how to build an altar, but ultimately you're building something that represents you. And I can't be the one that tells you how to do that. You're ultimately going to find what works. And as you grow and develop, you're going to change it. Like I said, it was originally indoors, and then I put it outdoors. I turned it into like a garden, and it resonates with me. And I love going out there and interacting with my ancestors and giving them thanks and praises, and including them into the family. I think we got another donation. He said, Empress Anne, Empress One of the live chat. I thank you. I honor you. Ulo gị ga-eto, aka gị ga-eto, ihe ọbụla itiri aka ọ ga-adị n'ụwa n'ọkọ ka dị n'eke, n'ọkọ ka dị n'orie, n'ọkọ ka dị n'afọ ise, that kind of thing. I think you guys should know, if you guys have been in these chats, you guys should know enough Igbo to know what I'm saying, by the way. I want to ask a question, and maybe I'm stretching. Has anybody learned any Igbo from maybe watching the videos, or maybe from the group chat, the Odinani group chat, or maybe from these lives? I'm not the best person to learn Igbo from because my Igbo is shaky. Like I need more practice, that kind of thing. But if anybody has learned more Igbo, let me know if that has helped, because in my journey, though my Igbo is not where I'm better with English than I am with Igbo, my Igbo is expanded exponentially. So it is improved significantly as I go. My flower bed is on, wow, oh, wonderful. My flower bed is on Momo. Absolutely. He said, yes, send it into the world. Someone told me today that this is a movement. I called it a channel. They told me, no, it's a movement. So those of you who are donating, those of you who are contributing, those of you who are subscribing, those of you who are doing something as simple as hitting like or sending this video to somebody who you think would be interested, or these videos, somebody who would be interested, you are contributing to a movement of rebuilding something that was once denied to us. And this means us in diaspora, and this means us at home. There has been a very strong and concentrated effort. I don't put too much emphasis on this aspect of things, and sometimes I do need to. But I've come to learn that I do need to, because there's been a very strong effort to blot this particular aspect of our inheritance out for all of us. So everybody that's contributing, it's not just about me coming here and talking. Everybody that's contributing is making this possible, right? That kind of thing. So thank you very much for what you're doing. All right, let me see if I missed some comments. Now I'm probably going to wrap things up. We're reaching 2 hours, and I'm sure you guys have very important things to do. Isala Ambano on my mom's side, Uke Anambra on my father's side. All right. So Derek, what are some items you can use? And also, okay, I already passed this part. Akana Bakongo slaves had a fearsome, reputation as warriors that fought back. Yes, that was ha ha ha. I wish I'll call you ha ha ha. So the Akan and Bakongo slaves were also known for fighting back and being fearsome. And oftentimes this whole thing about being known for fighting back, one, it's a stereotype. In the end of the day, it's a stereotype. So that wasn't always the case, right? And if you trace the histories and things like that, you'll find people from ethnic groups that weren't known for fighting back, that did fight back, that kind of thing. But there are certain precepts in those different cultures that make things like enslavement more difficult, right? Like in Igbo culture, we don't have kings. And, there are people that are saying, oh, I'm the Eze, I'm the king, that kind of thing, but they're not a king. A king is a feudal concept. It's from feudalism. A king is a person that owns, and I want to make this clear, a king, especially the people at home, a king is the person that owns the land you're on. So the Queen of England is not just a woman that wears a hat. She owns that physical land called, it's her house, it's her yard, right? So everybody living there is living there by her grace, hence the title, Your Grace, right? They're living there because she gives them permission. I think they changed it in the UK, but the old passports used to say this very funny message. No apologies to my UK people. It was like, I am seeking permission from the queen to leave her something. It was I found it funny as an American because, it's hard to imagine that kind of thing, right? So you cannot be a king or a queen if you do not own the land. In Igbo land, the lands are owned by individual families and people. It's not owned by a particular individual. But there are places in our traditional, like for example, in Hausa land in the north of Nigeria, the emirs owned everything and they lease it out to everybody. They were real kings. They were kings. They lease it out to people. So because in Igbo culture, we didn't have this concept of having somebody over you, right? Once you were an adult, you were an autonomous kind of thing, especially if you're a man, right? You're an autonomous thing. So it made it harder to accept it, right? Once people are free, it is harder for them to accept anything but freedom, right? That kind of thing. So when we do this thing, I talk about kings and kingdoms, stuff like that, we're actually reducing a very important aspect of our legacy, and we're not going to be able to understand ourselves if we don't understand that no, we did not have kings prior to this point. And Ize is an expert. And Ize is an expert. And the Ize of a community is the person that holds the ofo of that community, right? It doesn't mean that because I hold the ofo, you have to listen to me. It means that I can't lie. I'm not going to lie. So my word is more valuable. Because I'm not just holding the ofo, I'm holding the ofo obodo. Ofo IJ and obodo, right? I'm the one holding the primary central ofo. So that person ends up being more of a judge, more similar to what we would see a judge in Western culture, right? And if you understand the banging of the ofo, and you look at the contemporary legal system, you'll now understand what I'm talking about a little bit more. So I missed a lot of questions, so I want to catch all of them because these are a blast for me. If I'm holding anybody up, be calm. Let's see here. Chief Chinye, Keduki Mere. There are different words, but they're spelled the same. Afo. Afo is year. Yes. So yes, Ray Rex pointed out something that Afo stomach and Afo year, they are pronounced and they're spelled differently with the intonations. That is true. Now, what I have found is that a lot of the things that there's aka, all there's a whole bunch of words that are eke in the Igbo language, and based on how you say it, it becomes a different thing. They're all connected cosmologically. And that is the very interesting thing about the Igbo language. That is the very interesting about the Igbo language is that there's a lot of wisdom in the language itself, right? So I'm going to be pronouncing them wrong. But there's eke, like rope, tying a rope. There is a python, eke. There is eke, the day. There's eke for creation. There's eke for division, eke for division, for division, dividing things. And then it goes on and on and on. If you have watched my first video, which was how God was created, and if you watch my video, Ne Chukwu Explained, and then if you watch the video, the one I just made now, I'll explain, which is pinned up to the top. If you've seen those 3 videos, all of these words, you'll now see the connection all of these words have: the rope, the python, creation, division, parcel, like your portion, that kind of thing. All of those words are connected. And the same thing with afo, like the stomach, right? Or I'm saying it wrong. Year, stomach, earth, like wafo, land, year, stomach, earth, all of them are all the same words said slightly different for context and things like that. They're all connected. That's why the language is really interesting to me. So yeah, where are we at? Man, I think I missed a whole lot of questions. Can someone, typically with YouTube, they just whoever donates, they answer the questions to. So I'm hesitant to switch to that because I want everybody to be able to ask their questions and things like that. But it's hard for me to keep my place because it's not color coded. And this is fair. Get you go, okay. What is Ibo Kwenu? Ibo Kwenu is Kwenu is permit, Ikwe, or will, Ibo will, which sounds funny. Sounds funny in English. But Hiyamarukwe is what they will, right? So Ibo will it, Ibo will it, Ibo will it, that kind of thing. It's like all of us are willing something into being, right? I'm going to start doing Ibo Kwenu in the intros or the beginnings, but I feel like you guys will just be watching me and that just takes away the fun. So Ibo Kwenu. Let's see if anybody knows how to respond. Ibo Kwenu. Ndi Patreon, Kwenu. Ndi Eze, Kwenu, Eze tier, Kwenu. Premium, Kwenu. This subscriber, Kwenu. Go back and see if anybody knows. Yeah, yes, he says, yeah, yes, Uno nwafọ. Uno ma obodo amụrụ unu, Yeah, yes, now. Yeah. So we're gonna do that a lot more. Ibo Kwenu. So yeah, we'll do Ibo Kwenu every time somebody donates. I'm trying to catch up on the Jamaican slavers were notorious for their brutality. Yes, absolutely. What is the, oh wow, here comes a good question. What is the Odinala counterpart of the 7 chakras described in Hindu and the East? So in this mind-blowing conversation I had with our in-house Dibia, he broke down to me, we were talking about more. So he broke down to me that more exists on 7 layers, right? They're going to shut down my channel once I say this because it's too much. The more manifests in 7 layers. So think of it as a wave or a ripple. And there are 7 layers that it manifests. And each of those layers has a specific function it has. That's why oftentimes it's hard to explain more because it does all these different things, right? There's one layer that's a reflector. It's a self-reflector. It's your self-observer. It is the you that it is the you that makes you exist because you know you exist. If that makes sense. In my Nechuku video, I spoke of the concept of Atu, that how the world came into creation when Eke saw what was inside of the chamber, right? And this is the concept known as Atumatu. That's one of the names for Eke is Atumatu. Atu is like casting, right? It's hard to explain. So casting, Atuma, to know, Atumatu, a casting that knows casting. So when Eke, which is also known as Atu, saw herself, the world began. It became real. So one of those layers of more is the one that looks back at you and makes that type of thing. I'm not going to say my next video because I'm going to put it up for a vote, but I'm pretty sure this topic is going to win because it's been requested so much. I'm going to do a video on Afa. Now, Afa deals with the highest level of the not the highest level, but the furthest level, the furthest level of those 7 waves, which is called Aro, or some people call it Aro, right? So that Aro is that particular part, because we talk about DBS and that type of thing. That particular part of you is the part that gives you clairvoyance, right? Now, what's interesting is that these 7 levels lined up with the 7 chakras. And even if but the way I understood chakras before was as some type of ascension thing, like an up and down type of thing. But I want to look further into it because I wonder if that's like a westernization of the thing, because the word chakra means wheel, right? So it's a circle. And the DBA described this thing as a circle. Now, here's what he said. He told me that if you look at a planet, right, it has a field of gravity around it. One of the planets you see it well is with Saturn. And whatever falls within that field stays within that field and orbits around you like a wheel, like a circle, right? So that is your more. The more is like there's the Earth, and then there's the Earth you can't see, which is the layers past Earth. But there's something there because the moon is. This is the example he used because the moon is one of them. The moon is at the layer of reflection, is what he said. That's the reflective aspect, right? So the whole thing just made me go that kind of thing. There is something similar to what the East was describing as chakras, and I'm going to do a video on it, but I'm also going to talk about it in my Afa video. I'm going to introduce it a little bit with the concept of Aro, right? Now, what is very interesting about the concept of Aro is that particular part of your more comes and goes. It doesn't stay, right? It goes away and then it comes, and when it comes, big things happen. It comes and goes. It's a part that floats. And I don't understand chakras too well, but I believe your top chakra, maybe your crown chakra, also has the same coming, going nature, that type of thing. But that particular Aro, when somebody is going to be a Dibia Afa, which is the most powerful form of Afa, wherever you do your Iragun, where you do your ceremony for Iragun, if I'm trying to remember the plant, if there's a particular plant that is associated with Aro, if that plant starts growing from that land, then it becomes an altar. That plant becomes an altar. And because it grew from that plant and is associated with that, it grew from the land. Can't remember the name of the plant. I'll include it in the video for Afa. Because it grows from that land, it becomes what is called Arobinagon, which means that your agon has an arrow, and that arrow aspect that lives within it, which then means that you are a clairvoyant and you are a Dibia Afa, which is the highest caliber of Dibia. So it's very interesting and very fascinating. I'll break it down in the next video. Thank you very much for asking. There is something in there. Somebody else is from, hey, let me show the other states love. Anybody from Anambra? Who's from Anambra? If you're from Anambra, let me know what village you're from. Let's do Anambra first. Then we'll move on to the other states and so forth. I just said Imo and I left it there. It looks like half of the stream is from Owerri. It's from Owerri, which is cool. Umweze the second. Cool. You guys, Andrew Anyan was from Umweze. Let's see here. Do you have Cash App? The donate button here won't let me buy here. Yeah, I have Cash App. I don't even remember. I'm so sorry. I think my Cash App, if you want to donate, I really appreciate it. That's really cool. I think the Cash App is signed and the medicine shell for Cash App. Thank you very much for that. You can also join the Patreon. I think you might be already in the Patreon. A lot of you guys will have like one username here, another username there. So no disrespect if I don't know you're already on the Patreon. But yeah, so the Cash App is the $, then the medicine shell. Thank you very much for that. Mbano, Imo State. Man, is everybody from Mbano? Mbano. So I'm saying it wrong. I'm going to set up my Momo altar this week. Wonderful. If you want to wait, I'll bring my example. But if you want to do an Almomo, check out the Almomo video. But Almomo altars were usually represented by a cone, like a pyramid, some type of cylinder. And then traditionally they used to make they used to have pyramids in Igbo land. There were circular step pyramids in Igbo land that were mowed down because Jesus. Because of Jesus, they were mowed down because Jesus doesn't like pyramids. But they used to make step pyramids in Igbo land, and those were for Omumuala, and that kind of thing. So most altars, the most powerful, the thing that makes an altar powerful, the thing that people want to harness within and from an abara is the Omumu of that abara. You understand? That's what makes something magic. That's what makes it powerful. As a woman, you can watch the Omumu video, right? So both men and women have Omumu, but it's stronger in women. The way Ikenga is stronger in men. Omumu is associated with creativity, is your capacity to bring things into the world, right? So be they people, be they ideas, be their wishes, manifestations, all these different things, right? The power of a woman to bring something into the world, abstract and physical, is at its peak in the human animal, right? Within a woman, right? So when that Omumu altar is honoring that aspect of yourself, it also is related to your magnetism, your ability to bring things towards you. It was very interesting. This is going to sound weird, but I finally realized the difference between men and women on a less than superficial level when I went back in 2015, I think, which is sad that it took this long. But in 2015, I went back and, my grandfather passed. I think I talked about it in the video, and I was on a plane, and they didn't have very good music selection. I think that it was like Air France. Don't fly Air France, but it was Air France or whatever it's called. And they didn't have very good music selection. And I think the only things that I even found palatable were Outkast, Eminem, and Erykah Badu. And I had never listened to Erykah Badu, and most of the people I listen to are male. Most of the artists I listen to are dudes. So after wearing out Outkast and the 2 Eminem songs that I liked at the moment, I now started listening to Erykah Badu, which I had never done before, and I loved it. It was phenomenal. But I noticed something interesting. When this was Baduism, her first album. When she would tell her narratives, I don't think she did it on purpose because I think she was talking about her life. When she would tell her narratives, it was always about things coming towards her and then her having to make a decision, like take it in or bat it away, right? It was not always, but it was frequently happening. Whereas when I listened to a lot of men, it was like, I went out there, I did this. I have this because I'm this. It was like a acquisition kind of thing, or like this is a result of my actions, right? Whereas Erica's own was, this is a result of my existence. Like, things are coming towards me. I'm doing that kind of, and I was like, that's a very interesting thing because I had never seen, just as kind of like a blockheaded guy, especially then, I had never seen the world from that perspective, as far as how women encounter the world. Most men, you think, like, for example, like with danger, most men, oh, if I do this, that'll happen, and that's dangerous. That's kind of our thinking. If I go somewhere and pick a fight, then that's going to be a problem. But a lot of women is like, I'm walking this place, danger could come towards me. Good things go, bad things go, and I have to make decisions there. So it was a really nice perspective shift for me, which was just in time for getting married. Just in time for getting married and things like that. So when I came to learn that Omomo is related to that, it is your magnetism, is your capacity to draw things towards you and draw the things you want towards you, that type of thing, to increasing your magnetism as a person. It was very, very interesting. So yeah, Omomo altars are great. I think I should have ran outside and grabbed my own, but I got caught up in my rant. We hit 2 hours. I think I'm going to wrap it up. Sorry, late difference. Can a woman have an ikenga? Laura Queen, a woman can have an ikenga, but the question I'm going to ask you is, why? If you are an athlete, if you are like a fighter, when you understand what ikenga is, there are many instances where women, yeah, absolutely should. And it was awarded, like, for example, like champion wrestlers, women who were champion wrestlers, they were awarded with ikenga often, that kind of thing, that type of, all that stuff. So yes, women can have ikenga, and in the modern world, it's necessary because men and women face the same kind of challenges and struggles, and our rules are kind of more uniform now, or closer to being uniform than they were in the past. You understand? But I always would wonder why, it's like, I mean, without being rude, who are you trying to fight? Who are you trying to fight? But yeah, a woman can have an ikenga. That's not an issue at all, And I'm just joking, yeah, as far as why. I definitely have been learning from you. Thank you, kind of appreciate it. Yes, absolutely. Taught me more Igbo than I realized. Yeah, cool. I appreciate that, Ross. Cool. Thank you very much for that. I think that learning Igbo is very, very, that's the next big step that I'm going to try to help people do. So there's something I'm working on right now. I'm giving you guys a secret hint, since there's 34 of you guys in here hanging out with me today. There's something that I'm working on right now. It's going to be very big, and it's going to be very essential for the movement that we have moving, and what we have going on. So, but it's going to be tied to learning the Igbo language. So those of you who are interested, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe now. Hit like, and then hit the notification bell. I guess YouTube doesn't show everybody when things pop up. So if you hit the notification bell, it lets you know when new things come. But that's how you're going to be able to stay in touch and keep in tune. Or you can join on Patreon, patreon.com/themedicine-show. And then from there, you'll know I got something really big coming. It is something that has been in my mind for some time. So I want to talk about this more towards the end. I guess we're at the end, so it's good timing. So during the New Yam Festival, for my community and for my digital community, for my digital village, this digital village we're building, we got to think of a name for our digital village, by the way. And so if you guys got ideas, let us know. But we're building this is a digital village. I'm just the Albara. I'm in the forest talking all this spirit talk, but we're building a digital village, a community, that kind of thing. So for this particular digital village, I want us to kick it off, this idea that we are a community, by having a digital Iriji, or a New Yam festival here online, right? And so I had told, if you guys were paying attention during the Onwa Agon, if you're the Onwa Agon live stream, I said that Onwa Agon is the moon by which you clear the fields, and then you do a ceremony where you confront the things that caused you failure, right? Then what happens is you summon Ekwensu, and Ekwensu sweeps them out of the community. Or there's a ceremony, maybe a community that doesn't interact with Ekwensu, they sweep out of their community themselves. Some people use Agon to chase that thing out of, that's why it's called Onwagon. They'll use it to chase out of the community. Certain masquerade community societies will take over during that month, and we're cleansing the earth. And then we're planting new goals, we're planting new yam, we're planting new product, that type of thing. So during that stream, I said, I want you, whatever it is in your mind that you want to achieve this year, I want you to plant it in the ground for Onwa Agon, right? Then you're gonna have Onwa Agon, Onwa Ilo Mo. By the way, if you're interested in all of this, I have the digital calendar. So if you join the Patreon at any tier, you get access to the digital calendar. So it links to your Google Calendar. And so you know what market day it is, you know what moon is coming up and what each moon means. So that you can kind of follow along. So we all planted something during Onwa that we are going to harvest during Onwana, the New Yam festival, or the Earth Moon, right? So don't think I forgot. So everybody's going to let me know what they planted during Onwa Agon and how they've made it happen for this year and that type of thing, right? Otherwise, next year around during Onwa Agon, you're going to need to confront that spirit of failure and ask yourself why you weren't able to do that thing. And once we find the reason, we sweep that out, we're going to start all over again. But I want us all to be on the same mission. So as far as the language learning thing, I'm going to give you guys a hint. I'm going to be debuting or letting you guys know more about it during Onwa, the next moon, the coming moon, right? And I think we're a few days away from the next moon. I'll post the dates and everything like that very soon. So subscribe if you have not subscribed already. Hit like. It really helps the channel if you hit like. If you can't donate or join Patreon, hit like. That is the easiest way to help this channel, and it does a lot as far as how YouTube works. Are there fabric and prints that symbolize the Igbo people? Yeah, there's a lot of them. So one of the things that have come to symbolize Igbo people is Ishagun. You can Google Ishagun. It's a fabric that you wear called Ishagun. There's a lot of them for women, and then these become more regional or become more class-based, right? Like something like Akwete is not cheap, so usually richer women have it. But there's Ishagun for men. There's a specific way you dress based on your ethnicity at home. And I think this is more of a modern thing than it was a thing in the past. As nationalism, the idea of nationalism now becomes a thing. And I can talk about that some other thing, but as the idea of nationalism now becomes a thing, so people are now seeing themselves as ethnic nations, and then they have specific ways of dressing. So Igbo people usually represent themselves with a cloth called Ishagun. It's usually like a velvet pattern, and it's like, it has like circles, gold circles sometimes, with different emblems on it. Sometimes, even though it's called Ishagun, which is leopard, some people will now do with lions, Ishiodum, which I have a personal pet peeve against the Ishiodun, like the lion one. I think lions are lazy. I don't think they represent the same thing that Agun, that leopard represents, right? A leopard is it goes out there on its own. It's a master of all terrains. It can fight you in the trees, can fight you in the water, it can fight you in the land. There's a lot that goes into being a leopard Agun. It is stealthy, that type of thing, right? Which I don't think a lion represents that. But some people use lion embroidery. That's one thing that represents Igbo people a lot. In the modern times, there's a type of traditional clothes called senator, right? And this goes back to that idea of the kings thing. So there's one called senator where it's like a kind of like a traditional Nigerian thing, but it's usually short sleeve. A lot of Igbo men wear that. A lot of Igbo women. There's a lot of different things that they'll wear. There's more diverse. So I'm taking my time to get there because it's like a lot of stuff that I don't know, But usually, again with the short sleeves, and then there's different fabrics like akwete. What's aquacha, which is done in the Anyoma region. It is like a luxury fabric. A lot of the women's ones are for like, that kind of thing. But as you observe, you'll know that there's different ways the different groups dress, and it's becoming more and more regionalized than before, right? Like in the past, any Nigerian would wear abada. Abada is kind of associated more. Abada is like the big flowing one that a lot of people know, where you just do that kind of thing. Everybody used to wear that. I noticed in the 90s, everybody used to wear that. But now it's specifically kind of like Yoruba people and Hausa people and like rich people among them. But that senator one is one that Igbo people wear. It was made by people in Aba, and it's supposed to be like an everyday kind of traditional wear. So yeah, there's a lot of different fabrics you can wear, a lot of different things, ways you can represent. And I'm going to make a video on the fabrics, especially Akwete. If you watch my recent video, the Alpha Explained, there's a very powerful spiritual significance to Akwete. Back in the day, in order for a woman to make it, was a woman's thing. In order for a woman to make Akwete, she would have to go through an initiation just to learn how to just be, okay, now we can teach you how to make this fabric, right? So it's a sacred fabric. It's not just cloth. Same thing with Akwacha and Anyoma, or the Anyoma region, right? So Akwete has a very powerful spiritual significance to it and a very powerful spiritual meaning to it. And I explain it in the All Fall Explained video, but I can do an entire video on fabrics or specific ones, probably specific one at a time, that kind of thing that goes into it. So yeah, is there a fabric prince for Igbo people? Okay, there. Of course, understanding etymology or language helps overall interface with the culture. Absolutely. I'm going to tell you right now, my number one research tool is the Igbo language itself. And I'm going to tell you something about, I'll probably make a video on this too, but I'm going to tell you something that's really convenient about the Igbo language, right? That helps you, once you understand this, because like usually when I see a lot of people teaching Igbo, they'll start with the alphabet. But my grandmother, who speaks the best Igbo I've ever heard in my life, other than my mother, doesn't know the Igbo alphabet, right? No, I don't like she doesn't know yet. Like, no, right? So I would say the best place to start is with verbs, is you learn the verbs, because every Igbo word is a verb conjugated, right? And if you want to really know the meaning of that word, you look at the root word, which is the verb, such as the word journey, ije, I-J-E. Well, je is go, right? The E, the I, the letter I makes an E sound. So EJ, like anything you put an I in front of thing, it's like a continuous process, going, journey. It becomes journey, right? If you chain it nje with an N, right? It becomes another thing. Nje. Like it becomes like motion. Like I don't know how to explain it. So once you change that little first letter, it becomes a whole different thing. So I would say the thing you learn is the conjugation and the verb. You've learned 80% of the language, right? I myself, I know more of the language than I can recall, right? I have to be in the flow and talking to somebody, that kind of thing. But just like be speaking English and switch to Igbo is tough for me. And I'll start stumbling and messing up, that kind of thing. So, but if you know that little thing, right? Now, as far as research goes, a lot of times when I look at these concepts, one person will say this, one person will say that, and then I'll look at the language itself, like Eke. Well, people say Eke means this, people say Eke means that. Well, then what is Eke? Eke is create, right? And it doesn't mean create like make something new. It means create from what is already in existence, what is already there, right? So if I take a cake and I cut it up, Eke them the cake, Eke, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, okay. So then when I see people say things that correlate with that, I'm inclined to think that person's more accurate than other thing. So the number one research tool I have is the language itself, right? So learning the language is going to put you ahead of me as far as a lot of these concepts. By the time you know the language, you don't need to hear my mouth anymore. Umuada and Nze and all were leaders. Okay, I think somebody said something really interesting because I want to get a new vocabulary. Yes. Okay, cool, awesome. I've picked up a couple new Igbo words that I can use in conversation from this channel. Cool. But even more than that, my understanding of the etymology of Igbo word has gone up a lot. Yes, it's the etymology. So I think I know the etymology more than I know the language. Like I said, I'm kind of a nerd for etymology. It unlocks a lot of things as far as what things mean and what's really going on in the world. It's helped me. Igbo names for so many spirits in the world that we live in. Awesome, cool. Yes. And totally a movement. Yeah. The only movement. Yeah. Ijene Genje. Yeah, I think that's the only movement. Ijene Genje. Yeah. That's nice. Ijene Genje. Of course, understanding etymology helps overall interface with culture. I think I've already read past that part. Just check the old UK passport, and that's exactly what it says. Yeah. I'm asking the Queen for her royal permission to leave her royal holdings. I will not disrespect her when I go into these other places. Yeah. People say, oh, the Queen of England is man, they'll probably delete my channel for saying this shit, man. Chill out. Well, yeah, she owns it. You're in her house. When you're in England, when you're in Canada, England, Australia, I think Jamaica, you're literally on her land, like the way somebody would own a land. And the way this was revealed to me was there was an ebook I downloaded and just was reading for some reason about Frederick the Great. And Frederick the Great was a king in Prussia. And his, I think, great-great-grandfather founded the Kingdom of Prussia. But then when you realize what the Kingdom of Prussia was, it was just his great-grandfather's land. That's all it was. He just built up an army and started killing everybody and took over a bunch of land, right? Which is normal. That's normal. And I'm not being sarcastic. That's literally normal. And so he took over a bunch of land. And then that land, his personal property, he now brings in a bunch of peasants. The peasants pay him rent to live on his land, just like a landlord, right? Lord. right? So the peasants pay him rent to live on that land. He makes some of the peasants' army to enforce, or police to enforce, his control of the peasants. And then, of course, in order to have it officially recognized, he must be recognized by the church. So then he brings in the church and the clergy and all that stuff to have his lands officially recognized by all of Christendom, which was the original word for white. And, and then that's a kingdom. That's what a kingdom is, right? So oftentimes when they say, "Oh, this person is the king of Awomama or the king of Umokwe," I'm from a place called Awomama, but I'm from a community in Awomama called Umokwe. So the king, that's not what a king is. That's not what a king is, right? If I have to vote you in, or if the governor picks who you are, you're not a king. So the Queen of England very literally owns the land. Hey, my family's back. Give me just a second. Hey. I'm live. So I'll take it off. You want me to take it off? Okay, I gotta roll back. There you go. I'll take off one more. Go ahead. All right, my family came back from the in-laws. So yeah, when they say that, this person's the king of that or the king of Arochukwu and all that stuff, please leave that stuff alone. There's no kings in Igbo land. Otherwise, it could never happen either. Ulama, you hear the volume? Yeah. Come here, Namdi. Over here. Now that you mention it, or the same words for the market days, the same for the elements. Yes, the same words for market days are right. In Hinduism, they call it koshas, layers of your aura. Some say 5, some say 7. Ross Jones, man, Datology. I've learned a lot from you, my man. Yeah, so I've felt that I've been looking into Hinduism a lot more because Hinduism is of course very popular in the West, but I feel like things get kind of whitewashed when they're brought over from India to here, right? And one of the things I thought was suspicious is everywhere I live, there was always a big Indian community. I don't know what it is. I'm just destined to live around a lot of Indian people, which is fine. But I see people online doing yoga, and I see the actual people from there, and the personalities and representation are radically different. So I know there was some type of missing communication down the way. So I'm interested in seeing how things are actually done in India. Not that one is real or fake, that kind of thing. Yeah. So things like chakras, for example, you hear about these chakras, you see the thing going up, up. But chakra means wheel. So I don't know why it's always depicted as a line. It should be a circle. So yeah. Can you use Jiaosa to pray? Laura Queen, very wise question. Only if you don't have Ojibo. So it can be used as a substitute, but it's a lesser Oji. And if you have dignified guests or dignitaries, like people you want to honor, you don't use it. So it's like maybe your brother came over, or buddy, that kind of thing, you can use it or whatever. But if you have like dignitaries, or like if you want to do it right, you wouldn't use that one. It's like a substitute, and it's seen as like a lesser Oji. No disrespect to Hausa people, but Oji Hausa only breaks in 2, to my knowledge, and the Ojibo can break into up to 8 parts. And so the amount of times it breaks is very significant for the meeting, which you don't get that with Oji Hausa. And then again, since you're doing what your ancestors did, you would use the one your ancestors used, right? But if you don't have, I've seen people use rocks to do Oji, right? So there was one time we were at home, and we were doing whatever, and so somebody had come over, and they caught the other person by surprise, because in Nigeria, people don't knock or call, "Hey, I'm coming over." If you tell somebody you're coming over, you've insulted them. You just walk in, you walk in, like you just like come into their house and sit down, and then like maybe they're in the shower, they come out like, "Oh, you're here," and then everybody hangs out, right? So, which if you are an abroadian, which is somebody from abroad, and you go like in December, it's like constant. They're just coming, because it's the one time they get to see you this year, and hey, maybe you'll give them something nice from America. So I've seen somebody, because they didn't have Algae, they used a rock. They said, they presented it with their right hand and said, "Please, I don't have Algae, but let me use this stone for Algae." And everybody laughed, and they said, "Okay, continue," that kind of thing. Just a way of showing honor and respect. So you can use Algae Hausa. You can use whatever you have as far as an offering, but the highest you can use is the Algae, specifically the Algae that breaks in 4 pieces. If you have one that's you're a real waffle. I'm from Oba and Suka. Oh, I haven't asked who's from Enugu. Who's from Abia? I asked Anambra. Okay, Ide Mili North. I think that is Newi. Umu Anambra Abiala. Who is from Enugu? Let's do Enugu now. Enugu Kwenu. Ndị Ugwu Kwenu. Oh, Enugu is also my bad. So Ndị Enugu Kwenu. Cool. Our Umunna used to have an OB occupied by the youngest man of the clan. This OB had an altar that was a carved wooden totem for every male ancestor who held that position. Ahem, you know. So, son of Nook, you already know. Awesome. So hopefully it's in good condition. I would assume it is in good condition, and nobody has tried to do anything too wild. When clearing your chakras, doing it energetically, you can also circle it around in a circle. Okay, wonderful. Kind of thank you for that. Hit me up. We talk about chakras. I'm in a metaphysical university. Will do. Yeah, we have a lot of good discussions on our Patreon. So I'll hit you up and I'll pick your brain. Awesome. Okay, definitely. Okay, great. I bet a lot of Owerri people are really from smaller adjacent villages like Ochi. Yeah, that probably. Yeah. Whereas now just that whole space. So yeah, probably from smaller spaces around there, that kind of thing. I think the main town where I'm from in my area is Olu. So a lot of times that if there's not like an Awamama meeting, we will join the Olu meeting in smaller towns and things like that. But we have an Awamama meeting here in Houston where I live. Can you please answer the question of, okay, yeah, she already answered that. Carry and go market sells Ibo Aji. Awesome. Yeah, carry and go market. Cool. Can I connect with my ancestors simply by picking sand from my ancestral land? Yes. If you pick sand from your ancestral land, you're holding an offer. You're holding offer. And that is the offer everybody can hold. That is everybody. So sand from your ancestral land is very important. I'm going to get sand from my ancestral land when I go back next, and then I'm going to add it to my altar, that kind of thing. But sand aja is offer. So it's not something you play with, right? You don't add sand to your altar and start going there lying to yourself. You don't go there and make promises you don't plan on keeping, that type of thing, right? You don't do that. Once you're dealing with sand, specifically sand from your ancestral land or sand from most specifically and most powerfully, the sand from the women's walkways, they call them, the women's walkways in your community, those are footpaths, and the market. Those two forms of sand you do not play with. Then, of course, grave from ancestors, that kind of thing, all that stuff. So I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying that once it's there, you got to up that standard. You know, you can't just go there and start talking, which I'm sure you don't talk. So Digital Village, Agubeke. Oh, man. No, I don't know, man. I don't know about Agubeke. Well, Beke means, this is going to be hard to translate because all of you are going to miss it. Beke means like white people. Put it in the trash, okay, good job. Awesome. Okay, put in the trash. Attaboy. Get your tablet, let's go. Cool. So Beke means white people, but it's also used for like westernized Igbo people. And it's kind of used as a term to say like, it's like a funny term. Like if I come up to somebody, I'm like, hey, where can I find the mechanic? You know, just kind of in this voice. It's like, which is like, come get out of my face, you're speaking Beke, you know, like when you're not, you know, my friends speak Igbo or you know, act like an Igbo person. So they'll say you're doing Beke when you're like, the term Beke is the American equivalent of the term Beke is doing, you know, the Chappelle White voice. That's Beke, you understand? So the community Agumbeke would be hilarious, but I don't know if that's gonna fly. Yay, New Yam Festival. Yes, we're having a New Yam Festival for everybody that has supported the Medicine Shell and this community that we've built that we're trying to find a name for. We're building a digital village, right? And we'll be giving chieftaincies and everything like that. So no one actually effective it is. Can't connect to it. Okay. Or if any Derek's comments, not okay. And red cap, yes, red cap is also used as a cultural, like to represent Igbo people. There's a lot of different things. One particular thing about Igbo attire and like attire from other groups in Nigeria is that a lot of Igbo attire is earned, right? So a red cap is earned, Ishagun is earned, like anything that is specifically Igbo is earned. So what you'll often see is that in Igbo land, people will dress in like t-shirts and like the clothes that we're familiar with now, because a lot of the traditional Igbo clothes is ceremonial, or it's like a significance of something you've earned in life. But people, it's not by force. Nobody's going to hold a gun to your head because you're wearing ishagun. If you want to also just celebrate the culture, I think you could also wear ishagun when you wear the red cap. But let's say you're an older man and you're walking around with ishagun and a red cap, people are going to assume you're a chief, right? If you're younger, maybe you have a face like mine, assuming I still look young, I think I look young, and you're wearing a red cap, and they might think, okay, this guy's doing guy, or he's beke, he doesn't know. But a lot of Igbo attire is culturally significant. So that's why I brought up the senator. Whoever in Abada invented senator is a genius. So senator is like an Igbo traditional wear. I'll go bring my own. Give me a minute. I'll show my own. Hope y'all can see it. I'm exposing my gear for the new yam. So just short sleeve like that. Need to put this one through the wash, and then just like that. It's very, very simple. So that's what you're gonna see most people wearing on a day-to-day. Things like ishag and all that stuff you can wear if you want to. It's not a big deal. It's just cloth. But it signifies or implies something, right? And so a lot of times people just wear the senator just to be casual. Udum. Lion is not indigenous to Igbo land. It is an importation. Agun is the leopard. Leopard has a strong symbolism in Igbo land. He says, son of Nook, yeah. Hopefully that whole what does Agun mean debate is dying down, because it's all over the place. Like you're in Ishagun, it has leopard spots, right? You think they'd connect. Then traditionally, okay, I forgot to say this. Ishagun was actually traditionally literal leopard skin, right? So when people would wear ishagun in the past, it was from a dead leopard. Like sometimes you'd have the leopard's head, right? If you've seen like Joffrey Joffre in Coming to America, he had a lion's head. Sometimes it had the leopard's head, sometimes that kind of thing. Sometimes you use it to make a seat, but it signifies like a great man, right? So oftentimes they'll say that ishagun is for men, you understand? So, and it's that kind of thing. But, people have gotten casual, or doing like, what do you call it? Drip. I feel old saying that. Why do I often hear lions called Agu instead of Odum? No, it's not a dialect thing. People are just confused. And everything always has to be an argument with Igbo people. Lion is not Agu. Lion is not Agu. There's too much. Again, the original Ishiagun is mimicking leopard skin. That's why it's velvety. That's why it has leopard spots. Now you look at the colors, black and yellow, right? Black and yellow spots. They're inversed. With the modern kind of velvet fabric. But originally it was literal leopard skin there. And there's places you'll go to in Anyoma where they still use the actual leopard skin, right? And it's called Ishagun. They don't call it the Ishi, the head of a leopard, wearing the head of a leopard, right? One of the stories I've heard was that back then, in order to earn Ishagun, you have to go into the forest and kill an Agun. You have to kill a leopard, right? That kind of thing. So when you're wearing that thing, it's like, hey, it's a big deal. Supposed to learn Russian language too. Somebody says that intriguing. That's how you were supposed to learn Russian language too. Please do Akwete. Yes, I'll definitely do a video on Akwete and Akwacha. and all the different fabrics throughout the place. Another one that's another phenomenal fabric. Oh, why can't I remember the name of it right now? It's the one that Ebe members wear with all the insibidi. It's like a indigo, and has a lot of insibidi and a lot of symbols on it and things like that. It has things written. It's mainly for people that are in Ebe. Now, Ebe is only done by certain communities. Not everybody does Ebe. It is always communities on the Cross River. If you know geography well, it's communities on the Cross River. These are going to be like Afipo, Arochukwu, and just down the line, it's most known for Arochukwu people. They're known for it, but it's for Ebe members that wear that. It's blue and it's got all the insibidi written on it. Very cool fabric. I'm not from Arochukwu, so I don't wear it, but it's very cool. My good friend is though. And for those of you that are interested in insibidi, that's also a cool thing. So so intriguing. I'm supposed to learn Russian. Okay, yeah. I have a document that I use to help with Igbo verb conjugation. I'll PM you later. Chief Chinyere Njoku Eri Biathology. Thank you very much. Well, let's talk about that. Because like I said, I'm putting something together, and I think I know I've cracked the code for teaching the Igbo language more easily. And I've been using it to teach my son, and it's been very effective. Though children learn fast, it's been very effective and that kind of thing. So now that I've kind of tested it out, on my own child. Now that I've tested it out, I'm speaking to somebody at one of the universities in Nigeria, and we're working out something. I think we're developing a formula for teaching the Igbo language very effectively and very simply and easily, that kind of thing. So, Njenje, noun from Ije, exactly, yeah. Imo State, hey, Abia State, Kwenu, Elebino. If you're from Abia State, tell me where you're from. Abia. Ndi Ohafia. Okay, hey, Ohafia, you jumped the gun. Ohafia Kwenu. Hey. Yes, Abia State. The villages in Abia State they're always the exception a lot of times. It's always like all of us do this except this one place in Abia State. So it's a very interesting place. Okay, my origins. I'm also from Abia State, Yes, Abia State, Kwenu, dual citizen. My mom is from Ibam, Ohafia. Cool. Ibam, my bad. If you can't, okay, I like how you guys are also helping each other out too. So it emphasizes that aspect of community that I really do need to emphasize. I'm going to start emphasizing a little bit more on, because I've seen people connect, maybe they're two patrons, they connect, they help each other do something. I've seen that with subscribers. I've seen that on different. So yeah, I'm going to emphasize, we're going to make it official. We're still looking for a village name. We need a village name for this online community. The Nigerian gringo. Yeah. Beke is Nigerian gringo. Yeah. That's hilarious. Usually types of OG, definitely. Love to see a video on traditional Igbo attire. Yes, it's on the way, particularly since so much of attire we call traditional was developed very recently. Well, Chimoge, what's very interesting this is the big issue we run into, and this is not just with Igbo land, this is every non-Western culture, though some in Asia have kind of snapped out of it. We often, anything you call traditional or our culture was the fashion trend when white people arrived, right? And so when white people arrived, whatever people were wearing at that time becomes the traditional attire. But what we don't give ourselves the liberty to realize is that fashion functioned in Igbo land, Yoruba, all these places, the exact same way they function everywhere else, where there's trends. So what somebody wears in 1801 is going to be different from 1702, 1612, all these different things, so on and so forth. But around the early 1900s, all the things that once the white people said, okay, we're taking over this place, watch out. Once they successfully did it, then everything people were wearing. That's why if you look at a lot of the tribes in the Niger Delta, their traditional attire will have like British bowler hats, right? Because at the time when the white people decided, okay, we're everybody's money, the British bowler hat was in style. It was a style thing. Right. And so then it stopped there. It's like, okay, I'm going to dress like my forefathers. And then you have this picture of this guy. He's a chief. He's got a British bowler hat just because it was drip, swag, as you young people say, just because it was that in his time, it now becomes the traditional attire, period. So that's why I don't place too much emphasis on traditional attire. Even with the red cap has a very interesting history. Very, very interesting history. It wasn't colonial though, believe it or not, but it has a very interesting history. All the ishiagon, ubwagon, the hat, the kind of the striped hat has an interesting history. So I'm gonna go. I'll do a video on that. I'll put it up for vote too. I think I'll put it up for vote next. It's gonna have to go head to head with Afa. So good luck. I think Afa has a strong request on it. Leopard is worn in by Kemet by priests. Ross Jones, you're on to something. Oh, gee, you're on to something. Chat, fashion is ever changing. Yes. So a lot of times when you see cultures and they say, oh, this is our traditional attire, it's usually based off of what they were wearing when white people arrived, that kind of thing. Um, there's a lot of the world that's formed that way. Most races are based off of what you were worshiping when white people arrived too, right? As weird as that sounds. That's why Jewish people and Middle Eastern people are two different races, even though from like their next door neighbors, historically or theoretically. That's why people from India, people from Middle East are a different race, next door neighbors, theoretically. Pakistan, which is Muslim, roughly the same people as people in India. There's two different races, that kind of thing. So all these things are very interesting. But hey, I think, oh wait, what? Ndondo, in the Ebonyi State, is anybody from Ebonyi State? We do Ekbe in Nsukka, also Omabe and Akata. I can't say that right. Akata. Yeah. So yes, I did a lot of research on Omabe. If you, Son of Nook, if you've seen my Osu Explained documentary, the Osu Explained documentary, check that out. I talk about Omabe in there. I talk about a lot of the history of what was going on in the Nsukka region, because it's very important to that story. I talk about Leja and Nsukka, that whole area, and I talk about Omabe and all that stuff. And the Umabe is an extremely interesting tidal society. If you are from there, you may want to consider it. If I were from there, I'd join. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting tidal society. But yeah, hometown is Oba and Suka. Cool. A lot of people confuse it with Oba and Idemili Anambra. Okay, yeah. I think there's a lot of that happening. Where communities will have the same name everywhere. Like there's an Enugu in Anambra, but it's not Enugu. So, all right, guys, I think we're wrapping it up. If y'all got last questions, last things to say, last things y'all want to throw in there before I shut this joint off, let me know. This has been a lot of fun. I always enjoy having a chance to come and speak to you guys. As I always say, the best way to support the channel is on patreon.com/the medicine shell. So patrons have access to an in-house Debia, an e-library. I have a question. Jom now, go ahead and ask me. Jom has asked me. But yeah, patrons have access to an in-house Debia if you're interested in readings. The current in-house Debia is not feeling well. I'm sure he's going to be pissed at me mentioning this. He's not feeling well, so I put it on hold until the 31st. I think he's feeling better now, or he wasn't feeling well. I think he's feeling better now, and then on the 31st, we're going to see how we're going to work things. We're also going to kind of rework a little bit of how we do it, and I'll announce that later. But he does readings for people that want to do readings. If you're having a particular problem and you want to a solution from a practitioner's perspective, especially an expert, he'd be the person to go to. He's phenomenal at what he does, teaches me a lot as well. So we have in-house Debia. Also, if you are interested in Igbo spirituality, culture, cosmology, history, we have an e-library. So all of the documents I use for my research. I have 40, by the way, if you're already a patron, I have 43 documents on the way. I have just hundreds of documents, books, firsthand accounts, journals, articles, different things from, be they explorers, be they Debias, Nzes, people who know these things, that type of thing. And if there are particular subjects you are interested in, I know a lot of people that are interested in Insibidi. I have an entire Insibidi folder. Anything I know about Insibidi is also in that folder. So people ask me, hey, how do I write this in Insibidi? I'm like, hey, I have a whole thing in there that breaks it down. If you're interested in the off-fall, learning how to do ego off-fall manifestations, we now have an off-fall folder. And within the off-fall folder, I have a breakdown of how to do of the different manifestations, like the things you can say if you want a good journey, health, life, peace, protection, clarity, all these different things that you can say if you want to interact with your alter and Igbo. We have that in there. Just a whole bunch of stuff that's really interesting and fun and that type of thing. So we have that, the library, and then we have an Odinani group chat. So very similar to what we're doing here, where we pick a topic and we start talking, we discussing, and it's less me talking, reading comments. Everybody's sharing. It's a Zoom meeting. And so everybody's sharing and discussing these different things. We go very in depth. I think the last discussion we had was how to protect your energy, right? And so we looked at the concept of the Ofo, the Ikenga, and what is called an Obunsi, right? With Otunsi, or Obunsi, not Otunsi. And we looked at how these different concepts can be used in protecting energy, but then also how to take a lesson away from each of them if you don't have these concepts, and how to apply it in the abstract. And we came to a really nice conclusion. At least I think everybody shared different things. Last one was about astral projection. So we have these really good discussions in there. This would be a good time to join if you're interested. The next one's going to be in about 2 weeks or so, that kind of thing. And so that's also a part of that. But all of that is there. And then most importantly, it's the best way to support the channel, which is what the main purpose of it is, to support the channel. And then, of course, the calendar that's available to everybody with the moons. And yeah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's all on there. I'll post the link here, in-house, Bibia, library, I spelled there, in the group chat, group study. So it's all at patreon.com/medicine shell. If you want to also help this channel, and becoming a patron is not the thing right now for you, go ahead and hit like. You wouldn't believe how much that helps the channel as far as YouTube goes. Hit like, hit subscribe, share this with somebody you know. And hit the bell icon so that you get notifications when I post things and when I go live and all these different things. Being able to, like I said, I strongly believe that my chi brought me into this world to teach, and brought me into the world. And I'm passionate about the things I'm passionate about for a reason. So you guys doing this is feeding my chi, is rewarding my chi. You guys just giving me an ear and listening and being interested in these things and thinking about them and like coming with your own conclusions, like, hey, isn't this that, or that kind of, all those things are extremely rewarding to me. People get surprised about how much time I take to answer questions, right? How much time I take, but you guys don't understand. Being able to share these things and think about it and means a lot to me as well. I've heard people be like, damn, bro, like, so yes, answer. But yeah, so thank you very much for that. This has been a great discussion. Now, the person I said that they had a question, Asin Wise, Derek, is it necessary to make war? Do you think it's something that must happen finally? War? Yeah. War is a normal part of human existence. It is probably one of the most normal outside of eating and drinking and sleeping, right? So war is very normal and very necessary. And war is always happening too. War is an interesting thing. It is always happening, right? Just because there's no shooting going on doesn't mean the war is not happening. And because it's always happening, there's always preparation, right? People are always preparing, except some people, right? Except the people that tend to look like me, thinking, oh, we just talk about this shit. But I think you can talk your way out of these things. War is a very necessary part of life, that type of thing. Now, what's interesting is that our ancestors took a vow not to shed blood, right? So you cannot shed blood in our culture. So a lot of the culture is based on the ability to make peace, right? Before a war happens, there's so much that is done to make peace. But if that war happens, right, for everybody you kill in the war, for all the blood you shed in the war, you must seek atonement. You must seek forgiveness, right? You must seek forgiveness and atonement. You must, traditionally, they used to, it's going to sound wild to, the American kind of mind, maybe UK, maybe some of you guys are in Jamaica, but you used to return with the head of the person you killed, and then you'd wash that head, and through the help of a dibia that specializes in the Ekwensu energy, you would ask that person for understanding. Like, listen, I I went to war because I'm a warrior, because the way you went to war because you're a warrior. And in this process, I killed you. You understand? But that I don't want you to hold it against me. I'm doing the thing that warriors do. You understand? And then from there, you would wash it, honor it, and the DBO would give it a proper burial, right? So even in war, there's a process of honoring. There's another thing I do, like if communities are close to each other, the amount of people you killed, you have to give that other community back that same amount of people in slaves, right? Which sounds wild, right? But if we go to war and I kill 25 of your people and then you kill 30, somebody's gonna have to give 5 of their members to the other community, right? And that's why if you read the book Things Fall Apart, that's what's happening. When a person, if you know the book well, the communities had a conflict. One person was killed, and because that one person was killed, that community had to give one of their members. So killing is not taken lightly. But that being said, right, war is necessary. Of course, as a last resort, but I would argue it's always happening, even in peace. So yeah. Um, what do you think about Christianity? Honestly, tell us what I think about Christianity. You know, I think this is probably going to be the least exciting answer. I have a lot of respect for Christianity, believe it or not, right? And yeah, I laugh about that kind of thing. And the only reason that it comes up so much is because Christians put themselves in direct conflict with African culture. They and anything that's not white. Anything that's not white, they're going to fight it, right? I remember my first encounter with a religion other than Odinat, I don't know if you call Odinat a religion, but other than Igbo culture and Christianity was I was in school and there was this girl, this is an all white town. So there was one non-white person. Now, I was 7 years old and I had a sense that there was something not like her, that something I didn't understand. As weird as it sounded, I didn't understand race. I didn't see, when you're 7, you don't see those things. You don't realize those things. But I knew there was something unlike her that was made her different from everybody else. And it was something, somehow the same thing that made me different. And so she was talking about that Buddha. She said something about, I remember this very clear when I was 7. I was Buddha. I remember asking the teacher, what's Buddha? And she goes, the devil. She goes, the devil. So I was like, what? And so, that's the one thing about Christianity that I don't like, is like everything is evil if it wasn't made in Belgium, right? And so, but otherwise, if I also had the opportunity to work in a homeless shelter. I worked at a men's homeless shelter for about 2 years, maybe a year and a half, that type of thing. And I met real Christians, right? These weren't the Christians that are running around, doing the obnoxious things that Christians tend to do. These are not the ones you see on TV. I met real, genuine Christians, right? These were the most level-headed, honorable, balanced, respectable men, or among the most that I had ever met, right? They were brotherly, they were cordial, they were patient, and it was a very consistent thing about them, right? And these were people who read their book. These were people who took these things seriously. So after a while, I got to start asking questions. I asked one, what is your, how do you feel? Because the abortion thing was, they were pretending the abortion thing was news for that month, and I was younger, so I thought that the things I see on the news were things that were happening. And so for some reason, abortions kicked off that month. And so I asked him, what do you think about this? How do you feel? Because oftentimes it gets said that the people resisting are the evangelicals, and he was an evangelical. And this guy told me that he doesn't have an opinion on it because he's not a woman, but that traditionally, like in the church, the reason people in church said that you can't have abortions is because if a girl got pregnant, the members of the church were supposed to, and she couldn't keep the child, the members of the church were supposed to adopt that child for them. But it doesn't happen anymore. He says that the church doesn't do that anymore, but the same abortion is bad is there, right? And so he kind of gave me that perspective. I was like, oh, okay, that I can see, okay, that makes a little more sense. Have a lot of respect for him, have a lot of respect for the guys I worked with there. My manager there, all those things. So I have a lot of respect for Christians. I don't have a lot of respect for Christianity. All books of wisdom are books of wisdom, right? So I don't share these things to say that this is the only way and this is the right way and you have to convert and which is one of the things I don't like about like the Abrahamic religions. Well, specifically Christianity and Islam. Jews don't care if you're Jewish, right? And Igbo people don't care if, not saying we're Jews, let's not do that, but we don't, like, Igbo people don't care, traditional people don't care if you convert to it. It's not, that doesn't mean anything, right? So I'm not here to convert, but all books of knowledge are books of wisdom, right? And so be it Christianity, Islam. I had an epiphany when I was younger, about 19, just like, I don't know what it was. Maybe I lost my mind for 10 seconds. And I started just kind of like really seeing some really interesting things about the world. I think it made me wiser. And it came from reading about the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, I'm not a Muslim, of course, but I was just interested, you know, and I kind of, some weird way, I understood what was going on as far as the time he lived in and things like that. And it was very profound for me. So all these things are means of enriching yourself. So long as you're not going there to shut off your brain and to shut off your spirit and just have somebody else think for you, right? And feel for you and perceive for you. All these things can enrich your perception if you centralize yourself and then start, you know, okay, let me go see what they're talking about at church and learn. You see what they're talking about at the mosque, that kind of thing. So I have immense respect for Christianity. I've met real Christians, great people, no problems there. And I don't like when people juxtapose being Black or African as an opposite of being white. So, oh, Christianity is white, so we're not that, you know, that's ridiculous. You know, like there are plates in Igbo land that are older than the whole white race. So it's ridiculous to speak of yourself as a shadow of something you gave birth to. I'm sorry, but that's just what it is. Last question. What does it mean to see feathers a lot? You'd probably have to ask a DB about that if it's like a dream or maybe you're seeing a lot. You'd have to ask a DB about that. I don't know. I know that feathers are correlated with order. They're correlated with Chukwu. They're correlated. They're one of the symbols for Chukwu, or the divine masculine facet of the universe. They are correlated with order. They are correlated with ascension. You look at a bird, right? A lot of times when you're a chief, they'll give you feathers in your hat. It means that you have ascended. As a person, you have ascended. So they're correlated with ascension. They're correlated with Chukwu. They're correlated with like astral projection or like elevating, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of meanings for them. But if you are seeing feathers a lot and you want to understand what it means on your end, I would speak to a DB or something. That's kind of above my jurisdiction. So yeah. But yeah, all right, guys. So we're tapping out. I said we're gonna tap out at 1 hour ago, and I've been trying to close out for an hour. So as always, thank you very much for coming. Unu ga-eto, unu ga-eri, ihe ọbụla unu na-eme, ọ ga-atọ, ọ ga-adị, unu ga-adị, unu ga-enwe ije ọma, uche unu ga-eto, unu ga-ata ndụ, unu ga-eri ndụ. N'ọkọ ka dị n'eke, n'ọkọ ka dị na orie, n'ọkọ ka dị n'afọ, n'ọkọ ka dị na nkwọ. Ise. Thank you.